Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Let me go, let me go. Olivia struggled to get out of the hands of the guard who was trying to stop her. Stop! He commanded, spreading his arms wide. The man was afraid of hurting his former mistress. You are forbidden to enter the territory. But the woman, not listening to him, was already running towards the house. She threw the front door open. Edward, listen to me. You have no right to keep me out of the house. My son is here. Why are you here? Edward asked coldly and wanted to slam the door in his ex-wife's face. I think I've explained everything to you. You're wasting your time. The man grinned at Olivia. He was about to pull the door open, but the woman squeezed through at the last second. Edward allowed entry, but would not let her in any further. He played with her like a cat with a mouse, enjoying his own superiority. Give me my son. His voice was breaking. The woman struggled not to cry. I'm not asking you for anything more. You're not asking me for anything. Who the hell are you to make any claims against me? Do you know I could throw you out of here right now? And no one would say a word to me. Why are you doing this to us? Brian's little, he misses me, he needs me. You're wrong. Your son doesn't care about you. He'll never even think about you. He's a smart boy. He knows how to behave. Brian is fine, much better than with a hysterical mother. You're telling me all this on purpose to hurt me now, aren't you? You know how much I love my son, and you won't let me near him. Do you enjoy torturing me? I don't understand what I did to you. What's my fault? Why are you manipulating my son? Give the child away. You don't care about him after all. He needs a mother. He doesn't need a mother like you. What kind of mother? You have nothing to reproach me with. God be with him. Will you get lawyers on me? But where will you get the money for them? He grabbed her by the hair and pulled her closer to him. Olivia grimaced in pain. No lawyer can help you, okay? I can buy all the lawyers in town, and no one's going to tell me what to do. If I said Brian would stay with me, then he will. Get it through your head. I'm taking my son. Fearlessly, looking into her ex-husband's eyes, the woman said, and I will destroy you as you destroyed me. I hate you with every fiber of my being. I have no love left in me for you. You had a chance to settle this peacefully, but you chose a different path, and now there will be no mercy. If you think I'm afraid of your threats, you're wrong. I'm a mother, and I'll fight for my son to the end. Are you threatening me? Edward laughed. You're above that I shook off my shoulder without regret. You won't get anywhere, Brian, my son. If any of your defenders dare to come at me, they'll be sorry. He pushed Olivia away, and she fell to the floor again. Her hands shook treacherously, her heart clenched with fear. The woman didn't know what to expect from Edward. Bob, the man called out. At once a big uncle appeared in the living room, a mountain of muscle bubbling under his jacket. Get her out of here and tell the boys not to let her near my house again. If they miss like today, I'll fire them. Make sure she leaves the house and doesn't find a loophole to come back here. I hope so. Edward cast a last contemptuous glance at his wife. You'll remember today's lesson for a long time. He left, and the big man grabbed Olivia's shoulder, lifted her off the floor, and dragged her out of the house. Let me go. The woman tried to resist. You're hurting me. Listen. The man spoke quietly, right into the ear of the former landlady. Get out of here and don't come back. He'll kill you. You'll never get anywhere. Guys, he added loudly. The landlord ordered this woman to stay away. He pushed her out into the street and slammed the gate shut. Olivia leaned back against it, her legs stiff, her head aching from the blow, her lips swollen. She shakily fixed her hair, shook out her jeans, pulled her blouse off. Torn. She looked regretfully at the ripped buttons. Bastard. I'd only made him more angry, and I didn't even have anyone to turn to. She walked down the street away from the house where she had once been happy. Now he won't give me my son, she said, wrapping her arms around her shoulders. What did I hope for when I went there? All my efforts were in vain. How long have I been trying to get the right to at least see my son, and all in vain? How can I go on living? My poor boy, I miss you very much. God, how could I love that man? He's a real beast. Olivia walked aimlessly down the dark street. Her thoughts were confused. Pain, despair overwhelmed her. She couldn't give up. She talked herself into it. There are no hopeless situations. I just have to think hard. I have to stand up. Brian is waiting for me. I'd do anything for him. Tears filled her eyes as the dusk grew darker and darker. How could I not see him as a monster? She asked herself, did I understand anything? I was young, inexperienced. I lost my head over him. Of course he was handsome, successful. He was the kind of man every girl dreamed of, and how beautifully he courted me. How tenderly he looked at me. I thought that was it. Now my sufferings were over, and my life began a white streak. I believed that Edward was my destiny. He surrounded me with care and attention, spared me nothing, of course he did. A rich businessman, he could afford absolutely everything. I fell in love with him without a second thought, and I couldn't have done it any other way. He seemed to love me too, and I thought I was in a fairy tale. She grinned bitterly. No wonder. What did I see in my 19 years? No experience, no support. Behind him it seemed I'd be like a stone wall, unwilling to see the obvious. Olivia was flooded with memories. In front of my eyes, as if in reality stood a shabby apartment, a long time ago has not seen repairs and perpetually drunken mother. Well, looking at her daughter with cloudy eyes, Doris asked, what are you staring at? Take it off the table. You see mother is not well. She's grown so healthy. You should help your mother long ago. She wrapped an old, faded robe on her chest and pointed at the table filled with dirty dishes, covered with a tablecloth, in the middle of which was an empty bottle of vodka. Mom, I'm hungry. Olivia looked at her pitifully. I'll be right there. The woman got up from the stool and swaying, went to the cupboard with food. I'll boil some porridge and eat. The neighbor brought cereals, but there's no milk, but there's bread. And you clear the table. You're a big girl, 12 years old soon, and you're no help at all. The girls silently began to wash the dishes. Finally, they sat down at the table. Is that you? Doris asked without looking up at her daughter. Go to the neighbor. Ask him for a hangover. Mommy, Olivia had tears in her eyes. Why don't you do that? Are you trying to contradict your mother? She bailed. Who the hell are you? I feed you, and you don't want to respect your mother? Choking on poorly cooked, sticky porridge, swallowing tears, the girl was silent. Go now. Taking the bowl of porridge from her, Doris ordered. Otherwise I won't feed you. You are of no use, only loss. What are you sitting around for? We took pity on you last time. We didn't punish you. Now you have to answer for your behavior to the fullest. But they really started it first. Olivia repeated stubbornly. Why should I stand by and keep silent if they beat me? Why don't you punish them? I saw you hitting your classmates. Aren't you ashamed? You're ruining my performance. Your name is the only one that comes up in all the meetings. Stop bickering. Come with me now. She dragged a leaning Olivia into the principal's office. Here's Charles. The teacher pushed the girl into the office. Olivia's fighting again. It's a terrible child. I don't know how to talk to her anymore. Come on, Vanessa. Looking affectionately at Olivia, the principal said, "We have to sort things out first." "Olivia?" He turned to the girl. "What happened? Why did you fight?" "They started it first," she muttered. "But you know it's not good to fight, don't you? You're a girl, and girls shouldn't fight. You have to prove your point with words, not fists. It's bad, very bad. Go to class. Class has already started. I hope you'll apologize to your classmates, promise." Olivia was stubbornly silent. See? Vanessa is teary-eyed. She won't even apologize. I'm sure Olivia will realize everything and make up with the girls. Go to class. He quietly nudged her out of the room. "Why are you two getting so upset?" The principal spoke sternly as Olivia walked out. She was standing outside the door, all turned to listen. "You know that the girl is from a dysfunctional family. Her mother drinks. Her father is absent. What do you want? We'll have to put up with her until 9th grade, and then let her go to some school. We can't kick her out of school. She is the daughter of a single mother, and she has excellent grades." The girl clenched her fists tightly. She was hurt and ashamed of her mother, but she knew she would never apologize to the classmates who had insulted her. Olivia's mother died when she was barely 16. She only passed her exams after the 9th grade with flying colors. The woman for some time held on, did not drink. Even at work she was praised, but at her daughter's graduation she could not resist. She drank a shot of vodka and could not stop. The girl came home and found her mother lying on the floor. She called an ambulance, but the doctors could not do anything. The heart of a young, still a woman, exhausted by drinking, could not withstand. "Don't worry," her grandmother comforted her at the wake. "I will not give you to the orphanage. I will put you on your feet. You only finish school, and then you decide how to go on living." The last 2 school years flew by. Olivia dreamed of going to college. "Where would you go to college?" Grandma said. "Where can I get so much money? My pension is small. I have to live on my own." "Don't take offense at me. I did what I could." "Don't be sorry, granddaughter. Now you'll find your own way in life. I'm no help to you." "I'm not offended, grandmother." The girl hugged the old woman. "You have done a lot for me, and I will try to enter the institute. I have a dream." Olivia said goodbye to her grandmother and went to the institute. She easily passed the exams, but the first year was not easy. Often she had to tighten her belt. She was short of money. "Olivia, why don't your parents help you?" Her friends, with whom she lived in the dormitory in one room, asked her. "I don't have parents." Olivia answered and frowned, not wanting to discuss the subject. "What do you live on?" They didn't stop. "On a survivor's pension and a scholarship." "I hope that I'll pass the session well." "Who would doubt it? You spend all your days and nights at school, no personal life. Why don't you come to the club with us? You'll have some fun. You don't go out at all." "No girls." She firmly rejected all her friends' suggestions. "I have no extra money, and I need to study. I came here to study, not to have fun." The student's persistence paid off. She passed the session with an increased scholarship. "How lucky you are," enviously said the roommates. She passed the exams better than anyone else. What does luck have to do with it? Olivia shrugged her shoulders. "I want to become a lawyer, and not just a lawyer, but the best, and otherwise it's not worth studying." In the second year after the winter session, girlfriends still persuaded the girl to go with them to a nightclub. "Olivia, give up on this study," they said. "The best years are passing by, and you haven't even met a single guy. Why don't you come with us? Let's celebrate the end of the session. How long can you sit behind your books? We can get by without them for one night." "No." The girl took out a book and pretended to be absorbed in reading. "I'm not going. Don't talk me into it." "Olivia?" One of her neighbors came over. "We know why you refuse, because of money, right?" The girl didn't answer anything. She bowed her head even lower to the book. "We chipped in for your ticket. Shall we go? At least for once have a vacation like a human being." I know." Her friend waved her hands at her as soon as Olivia was about to object. "You're proud. You'll give us the money when you become a famous lawyer." "Come on, we're offering it to you out of the goodness of our hearts." "All right." The girl made up her mind. "I'll go with you." "Well done." The neighbors rejoiced. "Oh, how we'll have a dance floor tonight." Let the girls hold their dates tighter. The most handsome guys will be ours. The club was crowded. The girlfriends immediately picked up the young men. Olivia felt out of place. She stood on the sidelines, watching the others dance. She was intimidated by the loud music and disgusted by the drunken girls with cigarettes in their teeth. "Do you mind if I keep you company?" Suddenly, the girl heard a velvety man's voice behind her. She looked back and was stunned. In front of her stood a tall, handsome man. The top few buttons of his dark shirt were undone, and Olivia could see his strong, muscular chest. The man ruffled the thick, dark hair on his head with his hand. "So, how's it going?" The stranger looked at her expectantly. "May I join you?" "Please." Olivia shivered. She didn't know how to behave. "Are you here alone?" "No, with my friends. They're dancing, and I'm not very good at it." "Then may I invite you?" The man held out his hand to her as the slow song played. "Together we'll make a beautiful duet." "I can't dance either." The girl smiled and put her slender hand into his broad, strong palm. "Are you studying?" "Somehow I've never seen you here before." "Yes, I am." Her voice was hoarse with excitement. Olivia coughed. "Do you know everyone here?" "I know the ones who come here all the time. I agreed to go with my girlfriends for the first time today." "How lucky I am." The stranger smiled. "I had something to do, but I put it off. Probably felt that today I would meet my destiny, and I was not mistaken." Olivia's heart fluttered. "Fool." She reprimanded herself. "He says those words to every woman he meets, and you hang your ears. Look, he's much older than you, maybe even married, and here from the family rests. He's the one who lures fools like you into his nets." The girl realized with her mind that her new acquaintance, a master of beautiful words, but for some reason I wanted to believe. "What is your name?" The man's voice interrupted the girl's thoughts. "Olivia. My name is Olivia. Nice to meet you." "I'm Edward." The new acquaintance did not leave the girl's side the whole evening. He was strong and confident. "May I buy you a drink?" The man offered. "I don't drink alcohol." "You think this place is all about alcoholic cocktails?" "You're wrong. They make excellent non-alcoholic drinks here." "Don't worry, I'm not going to get you drunk." "Why don't we stop hollering at each other?" He suddenly suggested it. "Let's just go straight to the first name, shall we?" "I agree." Olivia smiled. She felt at ease around Edward. "Olivia, you are very beautiful." The man said, when they were already sitting at the table and drinking cocktails, "You have a special beauty, not flashy, but once one look at your face, one can lose peace forever." "You say that too." Is the girl embarrassed? "I forgot we switched to you, didn't we?" "You're not like the others. So pure, modest. I've never met such a person." "What do you think about if we continue our acquaintance and meet tomorrow at the cafe?" "I want to know more about you." "Oh," the girl was scared. "I guess it won't work. I'm studying at the library tomorrow. I have books on order. Don't you have any rest at all? You're on vacation. Edward was surprised. Can't you spare at least a couple of hours? Don't you ever take a vacation? All right. The girl gave in. Come on, come on. She corrected herself and blushed. I'll meet you. Back in the room, the roommates began to ask Olivia about the new acquaintance. I don't know anything about him. The girl answered. You can see that he is not a major, living on his father's money, a grown-up man. The girls reasoned. Older by 10 years, if not more. Dressed to the hilt, not on the market, a businessman probably. Lucky you, Olivia. Your first outing and such a good one. You've picked up a man. Don't be jealous. Olivia said no. Maybe he won't want to see me again. I don't think I can please such a mature, experienced man. But there was hope in the girl's soul. Like many girls who grew up without a father, she was attracted to older men. If only the young beauty knew that Edward had lost his peace because of her. He barely waited to see her. A man was waiting for her outside the library. As soon as she appeared at the door, he jumped out of the car and ran toward her, carrying a huge bouquet of flowers. Olivia, he called out to the girl. I couldn't bear to meet you here. Edward said, handing Olivia the flowers. She stopped, blushing with pleasure, recognizing him as her new acquaintance. I didn't get a good look at you yesterday. You look even more beautiful in the light of day. Shall we go? He helped the girl into the car. Edward opened the door and gave her his hand. Olivia, not used to male attention, was embarrassed and blushing. Olivia, you are blushing so charmingly. The man smiled, which embarrassed the young beauty even more. This dress suits you very well, he remarked. You dress very modestly, and I like everything about you. You are so fragile that I want to take you in my arms and not let you out of my embrace. He put his hand over her arm carefully, so as not to frighten her. Olivia, I don't know what's happening to me. For the first time in my life, I feel like I can't eat or sleep because I'm thinking about you all the time. You're like a fresh breeze. I started to look at the world in a completely different way. Before it was just living, working, but now my soul is happy every minute because I can think about you, I can see you. Do you like me, even a little bit? I don't know. During this rapturous speech, the girl sat, afraid to move and look at her vis-a-vis. I've never had a boyfriend. I studied hard because I had no one to rely on. But now you have me. Edward declared fervently. Now you don't have to take care of anything. I'll keep you safe and you study. You're in a hurry. Olivia could not believe her happiness. On the one hand, it seemed to her that everything was just a dream. On the other hand, she was so tired of being alone that she wanted to lean on a strong, masculine shoulder. From that day on, their sudden romance began to develop very quickly. Edward is crazy? His friends told him. She's just a girl. You're 13 years older than her. So what? She's so pure, so tender. She makes me feel like a real man. I want to protect her. I'm ready to throw the whole world at her feet. I'm scared at the thought of losing her. Well, friends, I'm ready to marry her. You're out of your mind. You hardly know her. Do you really like her enough to give up your freedom for her? I feel like I've been waiting for her all my life. It's love at first sight. Are you sure she feels the same way about you? If you could see her eyes. Edward smiled. They don't lie. They reflect more than love. They reflect admiration, adoration, and something else beyond comprehension. No, I knew at once that this was my woman, and I would never give her to anyone. 2 months flew by unnoticed over meetings and partings. Edward showered his beloved with flowers and gifts, But Olivia warned the man when he presented her with a gold chain a week later. "I will not accept such an expensive gift," the girl said firmly. "We don't know each other well enough. I do not want to be obliged, so never buy me expensive things. Anyway, I will not take." But I gladly accepted invitations to the theater for exhibitions. She knew tickets weren't cheap, but she thought such a sign of attention wouldn't hurt her reputation. "Olivia?" Edward called her one day. "I want to take you out of town. We'll be the only ones there. I have a hunting lodge in Pine Barrens. I only invite my closest friends there. You could use some fresh air. Shall we go?" "Let's go," Olivia replied enthusiastically. Pine Boar met with silence. "How beautiful it is here." The girl was surprised to see a large house built of round wood. The rooms were cozy. The walls were decorated with wood. In the living room, the wood in the fireplace crackled cheerfully. The flames played on the wooden floor. In the center of the living room, they were met by a set table. "They are waiting for us." Satisfied with the effect, Edward helped his guest to undress. "Come on, I'll show you to your room." Olivia was surprised that in a wooden house, all the furnishings are completely urban. It is a bathroom, bathrobe, towel. There's a TV, internet. Wow, I didn't expect it. The girl ran her hand over the silk coverlet on the bed. "I often have guests," Edward explained, "and I like comfort. Make yourself comfortable. I'll meet you in the living room in half an hour." Olivia changed her clothes and went downstairs. "Come in." Edward helped her sit down at the table, poured wine into a glass, looking solemn. "Olivia, I've already told you that I'm delighted to meet you." The girl smiled, listening to him attentively. "I won't beat around the bush. I invited you here for a reason." "I want to." The man took a velvet box from the shelf by the fireplace. "To ask you to be my wife." Olivia gasped and blushed. "Say, will you marry me?" "If you like me even a little bit. Believe me, I'll do anything to make you say one day, 'I love you.'" "I love you," quietly said the touched girl. "I agreed to be your wife." Foolish creature. Olivia thought to herself as she looked around. It seemed to her that someone was watching her. How did you not notice that your future husband is a bandit? And not just a gangster, but an authority figure, and his successful business was just a cover. What did I know about people back then? She justified herself. Just when I started to learn about life, he became my salvation from loneliness. I idolized him. Where was I to notice his gangster ways if he kept them carefully hidden? I didn't even have any suspicions. And when I finally did, it was too late. The young woman was again immersed in memories. After all, already at the wedding, I girls hinted that my husband is not who he pretends to be, but I did not want to listen to anything. The wedding was celebrated for 3 days. There were more than 100 guests. "Olivia?" The roommates she'd invited to the wedding asked her. "Where are your relatives?" "I don't have any. I have a brother, but he left home when he was 18, and I haven't heard from him in 15 years. You're my family now." She hugged her friends. "I don't even know if he's alive." "Olivia?" Looking suspiciously at the guests, one of her friends whispered, "Don't you think the guests, no offense to me, are a little strange?" "No. They seem normal." The bride shrugged her shoulders. "Why are you panicking?" Another friend got angry. "Rude, of course, that's true, but just normal guys. So these are Edward's army buddies." Olivia laughed. "He has a lot of friends from the military, from the law enforcement agencies, and there you know, people are not distinguished by delicacy. You don't notice anyone but your fiancé." My friend shook her head. "You fell in love with him like a cat, and what kind of person he is, you have no idea." Luggers become so stupid. Yes, she laughed happily. I love Edward very much. Now I can never think about money, never be afraid of tomorrow. He has taken all my worries on his shoulders, and I dream of having a daughter or a son, a little copy of him. I'm sure we'll be the happiest family, and we'll love each other until our last breath. Have you decided where you'll spend your honeymoon? Abroad? Olivia rolled her eyes dreamily. Edward has promised to show me the world, can you imagine? I, who hadn't even been out of the state my whole life, would be traveling on a yacht. Fancy hotels await us, and only the best seats on the airplanes. We even have personal security. It feels like, my friends have noticed, like you're living in a fairy tale. Yes, Edward gave me a fairy tale. I never dreamed of it. I've never seen anything good. An alcoholic mother, debts, the ridicule of my classmates. I think I'm just now starting to really live. And yet, her friends warned her. You should be careful with his friends. Very much they look like gangsters. The girl did not notice anything around except her beloved husband. She was flying in the clouds of happiness, carefree, lightness, enthusiasm. That's what surrounded Olivia. The young traveled a lot around the world, discovering new, beautiful places on the planet. One morning, Olivia woke up, stretched, and went to the kitchen to prepare her husband's breakfast. Suddenly, she felt an attack of nausea and rushed into the bathroom. What's wrong? Edward asked Edward worriedly, seeing his wife hunched over the sink. Are you sick? No, I don't think so. Breathing heavily, the girl answered, Maybe you ate something last night, or your blood pressure's gone up. I think it's nothing, it'll pass. Don't joke with your health. The man pressed her against him, calming her down. Go to the hospital. The same day, she made an appointment with the doctor. After listening to the symptoms, the doctor looked at the patient thoughtfully and announced, It looks like you're pregnant. Pregnant how? Olivia was surprised. It happens. The doctor laughed. You and your husband are sleeping in the same bed, aren't you? She blushed. There you go. The man grunted in satisfaction. It all makes sense to me. Of course, it is necessary to take tests. I'll write out a referral, but this is just to confirm my hunch. After a while, the results came back positive. She's pregnant. Olivia flew home on wings. Edward, she jumped at her husband's neck. We're going to have a baby. Oh, you're my girl. Her husband took her in his arms and kissed her. Am I going to be a father? Yes, my dear. Olivia laughed merrily. We're going to be parents. Thank you. Putting her down on the floor, her husband said seriously, I had given up hope that anyone would ever call me daddy. Since that memorable day, Edward had literally carried her in his arms, showering her with gifts and compliments. He kicked me with his foot. My husband sat at the feet of his beloved, his cheek pressed against her already rounded tummy. What a miracle! I wonder if he knows I'm his daddy. Of course he does. Olivia answered seriously. Talk to him more often. He will respond to you. The young woman was bathed in her husband's attention. It seemed like a long, wide, white Her husband, swaying slightly, smiled contentedly. He looked like a March cat who had just made a stray cat happy. As Olivia walked up close to her husband, she caught a whiff of alcohol and feminine perfume. Are you drunk? The woman asked cautiously. More like a little tipsy. The husband replied, smiling stupidly. His eyes were jumping, which said only one thing. The husband had fallen in love. Who were you with? You stink of another man's woman. That's none of your business. How can you do this to me? Olivia was outraged and go back to the house as if nothing had happened. I can see you were a woman. So what? You have no conscience. What do you lack? I go out of my way to make your home nice and cozy, and you pay me with black ingratitude. You're seeing some girls. I don't want you to bring any disease into the house. We've got a little kid, and you're hanging around with who knows where and with whom. Shut up, muffled, my husband said, heading for the kitchen. There he took out a bottle of cold water from the refrigerator and began to drink greedily. I'm not going to be silent. With a challenge, replied Olivia, following him. Today you're finally going to listen to me. Do you think I'm going to put up with your shenanigans? Don't think so. If you don't stop, I'll take my son and we'll leave you. I don't want my child to be raised in lies and betrayal. You've destroyed my love for you. You were everything to me. If you don't stop now, I can't vouch for you. Don't shut me up. Let everyone hear what you really are. You're an insolent, unprincipled type. I hate you. Olivia was getting angry. Tears were coming out of her eyes. How could you be so mean to the mother of your child? I said, shut your mouth. Edward thundered. And if I don't, what will you do? At these words, her husband swung around and slapped her. Olivia collapsed to the floor and lost consciousness. She awoke to the first rays of the morning sun. The young woman came to her senses and found herself lying on the kitchen floor. Her head hurt terribly. She felt that her lips were swollen and blood was caked in the corner of her mouth. Olivia remembered everything and cried softly. She got up with difficulty and staggered to the bathroom. Then she went to her son. Mommy, what's that? Asked 4-year-old Brian, anxiously looking at the bruise on his mother's face. It was my bad fall. Olivia smiled through her tears. Don't worry, it will heal soon. The bruise had gone away, but the wound on her heart hadn't healed. Edward pretended that nothing had happened, and Olivia didn't have the energy to argue. One day, she was walking with her son in a park not far from her home when she chatted with an acquaintance. She was met by an angry husband. Where are you going? Don't yell at me. Olivia spoke calmly, even though her heart clenched with fear. She'd never seen her husband like this before. We went for a walk with Brian and had a little talk with an acquaintance. Don't you dare linger any longer, let alone take my son anywhere. Don't forget, Brian is my son. Edward walked over to his wife, grabbed her and shook her as hard as he could. If you delay again, you'll be sorry, he said threateningly, his eyes spinning frantically. From then on, her husband began to beat Olivia for the slightest offenses. Didn't answer the phone on time, got it. Son can't sleep, get it. The woman tried to talk some sense into her husband. Don't you dare touch me. Even my mother never hit me. If you touch me again, I'll divorce you, take Brian and leave. Edward struck out. She, like a typical doll, flew to the corner of the room and hit her head painfully against the wall. You, the husband, blushing with anger, leaned over his victim. You can roll away even now, but you won't get a son. I don't need you. I have an heir, and now I have to raise him into a real man, and you get lost. Besides, you don't have anything of your own here. This, he put his hand around the room. It's all mine. So I'm not keeping you, get out. God, thought Olivia, trying to hold back the tears. How could I tie my life to a monster? I can't stay here. He might kill or maim me one day. My friends were right. He is a beast. I wish I'd known that before. Killing a man is like swatting a mosquito. Yes, we have to run. Olivia decided to bide her time. She secretly took the documents out of the safe, put enough money on her card without her husband noticing, and bought the tickets. On the right day, telling the guards that she was going for a walk, she picked up her son, left the house at a respectable distance, called a cab, and drove to the airport. I grabbed a small bag so as not to attract attention, figuring I'd buy everything I needed when I was safe. He won't come looking for me. She thought as she made her way to her seat. He's bored with me anyway. Let it have his fun with other women. But Edward had very different plans. A week later, the phone rang in the apartment she had rented to hide from her husband. Olivia, unsuspecting, opened the door and froze in horror. "How did you find me?" Frightened, she asked the two thugs who glared at her with a scowl. "It's our job." One of them answered grimly. "Where is the child?" "Why do you want Brian?" The mother asked anxiously. "I'm not giving him to you." She stood in the men's way, blocking the door to the room. But that didn't stop them. They wanted to pull her away, but the woman was ahead of them, took her son in her arms, pressed his chest. He put his arms around her neck and cried out in fear. "Go away, you're scaring him. Have pity on us." Olivia pleaded, hoping to reach the hearts of her husband's guards. "Don't tell Edward you've tracked us down. We have orders to get the boy back." The older man said grimly, "Give him back nicely, or we'll have to use force, and you won't like it." "No," she cried. "Please have mercy. Don't take my son away from me." But the thugs were relentless. The senior easily snatched, screaming with horror of Riep, from the hands of his mother, and headed for the exit, throwing on the way subordinates. "Find the documents on the kid." The boy was sobbing, wriggling, trying to break free, but the guard held him with an iron grip. "Stop!" the woman begged in tears. "Don't touch the child. What kind of people are you? You punish me, do whatever you want, but don't touch my boy." She pounced on the man like a tigress, trying to stop him, beating him with her fists, scratching him, but he calmly left the apartment, carrying the crying Brian under his arm. She was stopped by a second man. "Where's the ID?" He grabbed her by the shoulders, shook her gently to bring her to her senses. She looked up at his tear-stained face and realized that this soulless statue had no heart. There was not a shadow of compassion in his eyes. "Don't make me turn this place upside down," the man said calmly. "Where are they in the bag?" Olivia cried quietly as she watched him rummage through her things. Finally finding what she needed, he shoved the bag into her hands and walked out, closing the door tightly behind him. Olivia sank to the floor and cried out in helplessness. Brian's screaming was in her ears. "Lord, why did you allow this atrocity?" she wailed. "You let me, a fool, get involved with a bandit, and now my son is suffering. My poor boy. How will he be without me in that man's lair? No, I won't leave my boy." The woman wiped her tears, struggled to get up from the floor. Her legs would not hold her. "I will fight. I will return home. I will pray in my feet, only if my husband would give me Brian." She returned to town, checked in with a friend, and learned that Edward had already filed for divorce, and the trial was due in a few days. "He wants to terminate my parental rights." Powerless, she told her friend. "I don't know what to do." "Do what?" "Knock on every door," replied the woman. "You know you can't leave Brian with his father. He'll grow up to be a monster like himself. But I have no proof, you know that. Then get a good lawyer." "I don't have money for a lawyer. Edward's robbed me of everything." Olivia knocked on every door, sounded the alarm. Not child services, not social security. They wouldn't even listen to her. The boy would be better off with his father. They said, "You have nothing, no job, no housing. What are you going to live on? And to bring up a child? My son is entitled to alimony, and I'll start working right away, and I'll be able to provide for my son. I have a good profession. I'm a lawyer. When will you have all this? You haven't worked a day, you won't be hired in any decent law office, and the boy needs to go to kindergarten. He needs to study. If you work, who's gonna look after him? You don't even have any relatives. Without support, Olivia did not give up hope of finding understanding from the court. Tell me, she asked her friend. The court always sides with the mother, doesn't it? He won't leave Brian to his father. On the day of the trial, the woman was very worried. She was alone and had no one to stand up for her. Edward was looking at her with a grin, talking to the lawyer. All rise. The court is in session. The clerk announced. The case is being heard. The judge spoke. For the dissolution of marriage. Plaintiff, you have the floor. What is the reason for the divorce? Honorable court. Edward felt confident. I had to file for divorce because my wife is a drug addict. Olivia was stunned. That's not true. The woman shouted in despair. The court is admonishing you. The clerk stopped her. Next time we'll have to remove you from the courtroom. You see, honorable court, the man gloated at her. She has no self-control at all. I fear for my son's life. I never know what's in her mind. She can't go a day without a dose. I tried to get her into rehab, but she ran away. Look at her. She's crazy. It's scary to leave a child with her. Olivia really didn't look well. The events of the last few days had knocked her out. Dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights and tears, her pale face, her hair, her hands trembling with fear. Everything created the image of an unhealthy person. After a short break, the court announced the decision. The claims are satisfied, the marriage is dissolved, and Brian's son is to be placed in the custody of his father. What father? The mother shrieked. Edward laughed triumphantly in her face. You can't give your son to him. It's wrong. The child must stay with his mother. In desperation, she rushed to the judge. You're making a mistake. I beg you, listen to me. But the judge quickly disappeared behind the door without even giving the woman a glance. You can appeal within 10 days, the secretary said nonchalantly. In desperation, Olivia went to her husband and demanded her son back. She had hoped that he had some compassion for her, but she was wrong. You will never see your son again, Edward declared. Do you understand? You have no right to forbid me from seeing Brian. I am his mother. I'm my son's guardian now, and you're nobody. I decide who he sees. You have nothing to give him. What can you give him? I won't let my child grow up poor. He should have the best. Get out of my house. I don't want to see you anymore. I'm sick of your tantrums. I'm not going anywhere until I see my son. I have as much right to him as you do. You don't have any rights. Edward laughed. I deprived you of them. You bribed the court? The woman was horrified. I've settled it, and the rest is none of your business. I'll have the case reviewed. I'll tell everyone what a beast you are. Edward swung around and hit his ex-wife in the face. She flew to the corner of the hallway, her head hitting the wall painfully. Don't you dare tell them anything about me. The man brought his face close to her. I'll bury you alive in the woods. Olivia was frightened and couldn't move. Bob, he shouted to the guard, get her out of here. Make sure this woman is never allowed on my property again. He threw her out like a stray dog from his posh mansion, took away everything, deprived her of the hope of ever seeing her son. Olivia wrapped her arms around herself, shivering. She walked slowly to wherever she was going. Why did he do this to me? She whispered. I hate him. God, if you are real, punish Edward for the evil he's done to me and Brian. Isn't there anything you can do about him? Can a mother and son be separated from each other with impunity? Where am I going now? I have no money, no place to live. I don't even know what to do next. Edward rolled over my life and divided it into before and after. I want to lie down and die right here. Let my ex-husband be ashamed of himself for driving me to my death. Olivia walked down the road. No, that's a no-go. He'll even be glad if I die. I won't give him that pleasure. I will fight. I have my boy. For his sake, I have no right to give up. Olivia, busy thinking, didn't notice that a tinted SUV was following her down the dark, deserted street. Finally coming out of her reverie, she sensed she was being followed. The woman stopped abruptly, looked back, the car slowed down, and immediately stopped. She resolutely approached the car in full confidence that it was her husband's guards escorting her, wanting to make sure she had definitely given up trying to get back into the house. What do you want with me? Olivia banged her fist on the glass. The glass slowly traveled downward. The woman was stunned. Her face reflected first consternation, then bewilderment, surprise. You? She exhaled. How did you find me? Get in the car. It's not safe. A voice came from the window. The door opened, and Olivia obediently climbed in and sat down on the seat next to the driver. Robert, still not believing her eyes, the woman said, My brother, my darling. His eyes filled with tears. The woman grabbed his hand, pressed it to her lips. She gazed into her brother's face and could not look at him. Where did you come from? He put his hand on the back of her head, pulled her toward him, pressed his forehead against hers, just like when she was a child. Let's get home and talk about it. Robert answered. He let her go and started the car. 20 minutes later, they were sitting in the cozy living room of Robert's apartment. Olivia had a mug of hot tea in her hands. The woman couldn't look at her brother. Tell me soon, where are you? How did you find me? I've been trying to find you for almost 15 years. I thought you were dead. I couldn't tell you that our mom was gone. I was at the cemetery. Robert answered briefly. It's just that no one recognized me. Of course, it's been years. How did you recognize me? How did you end up at Edward's house anyway? I haven't let you out of my sight for a day in all these years. But why didn't you contact me? I saw you were doing well, nothing to worry about, and now it was time for me to come to your rescue. I know your husband divorced you. He didn't just divorce me. The woman spoke muffled, her face drooping. He took my son away from me. I know for a fact he doesn't want him. He wanted to punish me. Olivia briefly told her brother everything that had happened to her. I can't believe Edward was able to take away your parental rights so easily. You're not some kind of speechless creature. Why didn't you tell the court about him beating you? He's looking at real time for that. If it was easy, I wouldn't be sitting here crying on your shoulder. He's bought. He's a thug. I know it. But I don't have any proof. I don't have to tell you that money can buy a bald man or intimidate anyone. All right? Robert jumped up and paced the living room. I can accept that Edward managed to bribe the custody and the court, but why didn't you ever record the beatings? It's such a bargaining chip against your ex-husband. He wouldn't have been able to get away with it. The police would have had to make a case against him. You think I didn't see a doctor? Sadly, Olivia grinned. What's the use? I've been to the police and the clinic, and the beatings were recorded, and then all the evidence mysteriously disappeared. And here and there they just throw up their hands. I walked around with broken ribs and bruises on half my face, and the doctor looked at me with honest eyes and said, How do I know who broke your ribs? Maybe you fell yourself, and now you're blaming a good man? I knocked on closed doors. Nobody cared about me. It's like there are no decent people left, only corrupt and inhuman officials. I'm sorry, But your whole story sounds like bullshit. You're not registered at a mental institution by any chance. How could I not? He put me down as a drug addict. I'm also registered with a narcologist, even though they didn't even take a test to put me there. You have no idea how much paperwork I had to do to get Brian to stay with me. And what do you think? The guardianship office told me in no uncertain terms that I could put these papers on the bathroom wall and they wouldn't let them go through. They didn't even make a big deal about Edward paying them. So what are you going to do? What can I do? Olivia shrugged. You're not going to give up, are you? We have to come up with a plan to get Brian. Robert, I'm begging you, stay out of this. You have no idea what a scary man Edward is. An acquaintance who helped me escape then went missing. Another man who counseled me before the trial had his car burned. I don't want to lose you. Edward, enjoying complete impunity, is afraid of nothing and no one. Well, if we can't get my nephew back legally, we'll use their methods. What are you up to? The woman asked fearfully. Let's do it this way. Robert looked at his watch. It's already a long time, and I have to work tomorrow. So I need to get some sleep. You stay at my place. There's nowhere to go anyway. We'll decide in the morning. Tomorrow we'll decide what we're going to do. At breakfast, Robert said, I'll go to the police station. There's a man who owes me a favor. I'll make some inquiries about your ex-husband. I can't believe you can't find a weak spot to nail him on. How can he help us? Olivia perked up. She hadn't slept well the night before, with thoughts of Edward, her son, and the sudden appearance of her brother. No offense, but I still don't believe your story. I need proof. If you went to the police, we'll know about it. Then it'll be bad news for the man who got the battery case dismissed. We'll try to pull that thread. The woman spent the day alone. Her nerves were frayed. She cleaned the apartment, cooked lunch and dinner, trying to keep herself busy. There was nothing worse, waiting and catching up. She repeated from time to time, flinching at every rustle. Finally, the lock on the door clicked. Robert? Olivia hurried to meet her brother. I'm exhausted. What took you so long? Did you find out anything? Did you find any proof that what I said was true? She literally bombarded her brother with questions. Wait, Robert smiled. Let me at least take my clothes off. We're not going to talk in the hallway, are we? I'm sorry. The woman was embarrassed. You're tired. Come in. I've got dinner ready. Robert had a little snack, and then, not to bore his sister, who was sitting like on pins and needles from excitement, he spoke. Well, sister, your case is not so hopeless. I managed to find out that your ex-husband has a criminal case. Turns out, 2 weeks before you ran away, Edward bought a house for a lot of money. Now the question is, where did he get that kind of money? I thought he had some kind of business. Olivia answered confused. He makes good money. But I don't know what kind of business. We've never discussed it. Here we come to the main thing. Robert looked at his sister triumphantly. His business was just a front that allowed him to do all sorts of dirty deeds. Edward had never been afraid of anything, knew he could always get away with it. And if he had to, he'd get his thugs on someone, and they'd use force to solve any situation. I realized too late who my husband was. Bitterly, Olivia confessed. We already had Brian. Where was I supposed to go? I don't blame you for anything. Calm down, sis. Robert smiled encouragingly. Olivia had already found a job, and she was ashamed to be on her brother's back. One night the phone rang. It was strange. Olivia tensed. The number was unfamiliar. Take it. Her brother advised her. What if it's an important call? Olivia, hello? It's Michael. A woman heard it. Michael? Olivia asked fearfully. I don't know any Michael. I'm with Edward, the security guard. Do you remember me? Yes, I do. The image of a big ombel appeared before her eyes. What do you want from me? Did Edward send you? We need to talk. The man answered briefly. Can you meet me? It's very important and urgent. I don't have much time. Who is it? The brother asked with one eye. The guard Edward. He is asking for a meeting. Olivia answered Robert's mute question with her hand on the receiver. Say yes, whispered the brother. We need to find out what he wants from you. All right, let's meet. Olivia gave the address of a cafe away from her brother's house, just in case. Did he say what the conversation would be about? Robert asked. No, he didn't say anything at all. I have no idea what he wants. This is the most loyal assistant of the ex-husband. If you're afraid, I can come with you? No, don't. He might get scared and not say anything if he sees you following him. I don't think he's planning something against me. Why call, make an appointment, when you can be followed in the street? Staying home, I'll go alone. And Michael glanced quickly at Olivia, said nothing, and continued. She was accidentally discovered by a passing driver. She was lying on the curb in the rain, bloody and unconscious. Michael gritted his teeth. The girl had survived, but was disabled. She's bedridden. That's my sister, my Mary. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Olivia looked sympathetically at the man. What about Edward? Was he found? Did he help the girl, track her down, pay for her treatment? Did he? Michael hesitated, glanced at her again quickly, tried to clean up his tracks, sent the car in question straight to the wrecking yard, and no evidence. There were no witnesses to the hit and run. Mary doesn't remember anything. The police refused to even file a case. If a miracle happened and someone took over the investigation, just for show, they wouldn't go into detail. Lawyers' fees, the police are all paid for years in advance, a fact Edward didn't even hide. Wait, Olivia was stunned. So you didn't even file a report? What's the point? No one saw the car, no one saw the accident, and if anyone did, they'll keep quiet. You know as well as I do what Edward does to witnesses. How did you know it was Edward who did this to your sister and not someone else? I didn't realize it right away, of course. I first got suspicious when I saw the commemorative car, and I compared some facts myself, and I questioned Mary. And then Edward spoke up, bragging that no one would ever know how he'd hit the girl. I mean, fools walk around, and then you have to answer for them. Michael was silent, drawing inconceivable patterns on the table with a teaspoon. Can you imagine? The man spoke softly. He had left Mary to die on the side of the road like a stray dog. Didn't see fit to stop and at least see if she was alive. Olivia's heart was bleeding, seeing how hard it was for him to remember. I made up my mind a long time ago. He looked straight into Olivia's eyes. I could have dealt with Edward right away. He doesn't even know Mary is my sister. I'm not afraid of prison, but he stopped. Mary has no one but me. Her parents are long dead. Who's going to look after her? You know what I mean? I do. I'm sorry about your sister. If there's anything I can do to help her, I can't go through the paperwork myself. Michael interrupted the woman. Edward's arms are too long. I'm not afraid for myself. But Mary, what about you? I'm sure you can handle the information properly. What if my husband finds out it was you who gave me the documents? Will he never think of me for who I am? He grinned. A speechless, dumb bastard who only knows how to swing his fists and turn a steering wheel. If you don't tell him, Edward won't know, will he? The man stared at Olivia. He won't find out from me, she assured him. You don't have to worry. Okay. Michael stood up resolutely from the table. I gotta go. Remember, you and I have never met. If anything goes wrong, I won't even admit under penalty of death that I gave you the documents. My sister's life is the most important thing to me. You bet I won't tell anyone who I got the documents from. Michael stood there for a while, as if still doubting that he had done the right thing. Then he walked resolutely out of the cafe. Olivia saw him get into his car and drive away. Thank you, kind man, she whispered after him. You're saving not only your sister, but also my child. She sat at the table for a while, finished her long cold coffee, and then went home. Hurry up and tell me. Robert hurried her when she entered the apartment. How did it go? What did he want from you? Here. Olivia solemnly placed a black folder on the table. It's some papers Michael said would help me get my son back. Give it to me. The brother took a quick look at the documents. With each passing minute, the sinister smile on his face grew wider and wider. That's it. The cage is shut. The bird is caught. These papers are worthless. He hugged his sister, whirled her around the room. Now your ex-husband will go to jail for a long time. Don't doubt it. We'll nail him to the fullest. Even money won't help him get away with it. And what of the documents? Olivia asked impatiently. What's in them? Remember, I told you about the scheme by which Edward defrauded the depositors, declaring himself bankrupt. Then the investigation had a weak evidence base. He received only a suspended sentence. Top defense lawyers did their best. So now we have ironclad proof of his guilt. Not even the fact that he is the guardian of a minor child can save him. There's no way he's going to get away with this. Robert smiled wickedly. I'll do my best to make sure he does, and he'll go to prison for a long time. Edward, of course, will try again to pressure someone, pay someone, even intimidate someone. You and I know about all his methods, his persuasion, but I don't think the patrons will back him this time. No reason for them to risk their heads and their reputations, so it looks like he's done for. Hang in there, sister. It won't be long before we can savor the victory. And Brian will come back to me. Olivia was worried. Don't doubt it. Those who took him from you must be punished. Oh my God! I clasped my hands together. How I long to hold my boy. I miss him so much. He's all alone. I can imagine what he's been through. I'll have to be patient, of course, but in such a delicate matter, there's no rush. We must think it over, calculate everything, so that Edward and his assistants could not find a single loophole. We will not give them the opportunity to turn around and get away with it again. The very next day, the documents were on the desk of the investigative committee of the prosecutor's office. Everything turned out as Robert had envisioned. Strong patrons turned away from Edward. Even money was powerless before the undeniable facts. A few months later, there was a tumultuous trial. A guilty verdict. The judge read out the verdict and imposed a sentence of imprisonment with confiscation of property in favor of defrauded depositors. Edward didn't believe until the last minute that he'd get a real sentence. As if in a fog, he listened to the verdict. The defendant is to be taken into custody in the courtroom. No, the convict screamed, I can't go to prison. You don't understand. You don't know who I am? I'm all of you here. Didn't I pay you all enough? He looked wildly at the judge, at the hall where the witnesses in the case were sitting, trying not to meet his gaze. His recent associates, who by sheer luck had escaped punishment. I'm gonna find out who leaked me. I'm gonna go back and kill every traitor. You think I can't get you? You don't know me very well. You bastards. The convoy handcuffed him, passing Olivia, who was attending the trial. Edward stopped and hissed angrily. Are you triumphant? I will come out and destroy you, you creature. I'm not afraid of you." Calmly, looking him straight in the eye, the woman replied, "And from the looks of it, you won't be coming out any time soon." Edward was led out of the hall, shouting, swearing, sending curses, but no one listened to him. A lot had changed in Olivia's life. Her brother helped her hire a lawyer, and he got the divorce case reviewed. The woman not only got her son back, but also some of her property. It was a domino effect. It was like the investigators were just waiting for the right moment. They began to consider a chain of criminal cases involving Edward. In the evening, sitting in the living room of her own apartment, the woman held her son close to her, as if she was afraid of losing him again, and talked to her brother. "Robert, how happy I am that you have found yourself. Now I know for sure that I am not alone. You and Brian, my family." She looked at him affectionately. "Thank you so much for everything you have done for us. Without you, there is no way I could have handled Edward." "Don't say that in front of your son." Her brother reprimanded her. "You're strong, I know. You would have fought to the end on your own. I still don't understand how I could have loved him. I didn't just love him, I was sick of him, and then I didn't notice how I became a hostage to that love. I wanted so much to be happy. Olivia, it's not your fault, and don't bring up Edward. All the bad stuff is over. Brian is by your side, and your ex-husband is where he belongs. He can't hurt you anymore. You're young, you're beautiful, you're gonna be happy. You're right, we're in for good times. I have nothing to fear now. Think about the future. You've got a son to worry about. Forget the past." "No, Robert, there's something else I have to do, and I need your help again." "What is it?" "I need you to help me find a very good person. It's a girl, her name is Mary. I want to meet her." "Who is she?" "She's Michael's sister. We'll find her. We owe Michael our lives. I'd do anything for him." In the ward of the home for the disabled, a young woman was sitting in a chair. Her legs were covered with a plaid, a book on her lap, but she wasn't reading. Her gaze was fixed on the windows. Apparently, she was waiting for someone in the gray. There was sadness in her gray, pensive eyes. The door creaked open, and the girl tensed, looking hopefully at the entrant. "Mary, there's someone here to see you," the young nurse said. "Michael?" The patient's pale face lit up with a faint smile, and she immediately revived. "Hurry up. No, there's a strange woman with a child. That's strange." The smile immediately fled from her face. The joy that had flashed in her eyes faded, and the girl immediately lost interest in the nurse. "I'm not waiting for anyone, and I don't want to see anyone. They asked me to take them in. What should I say?" "All right." The young woman shrugged her shoulders. "Let them come in, since they came. Let's see what they need from me." The girl disappeared, and a few minutes later there was a knock at the door. Mary was alert. "Hello." A pretty woman appeared on the doorstep. She was holding a child's hand tightly. "Mary, my name is Olivia, and this is my son Brian." "Hello." Surprised to see the visitor, Mary replied. "Do we know each other?" "No." The woman smiled at her. "But I came to thank you." "I don't understand." "Thank me for what?" "For your brother. He saved me and my son." "That sounds like Michael." A sad smile appeared on the young woman's face. "Why hasn't he come himself?" "I've been waiting and waiting for him, and he hasn't come." "Did something happen to him?" "No." Olivia hurried to reassure her. "He's fine. Michael doesn't know we've tracked you down yet. I just wanted to do something to help him. You don't have anyone else besides your brother, do you? I know you find it strange that we're here. Michael will tell you later, but in the meantime, can Brian and I visit you?" "As you wish." Mary looked at the visitors incredulously. "I'm told you're supposed to be going for a walk now." The weather is nice, so I suggest we go out and get some fresh air and get to know each other." Mary thought for a moment, then smiled and nodded in agreement. Olivia popped the stroller outside and walked down the alley deep into the garden. They talked a lot, little Brian walking beside them. With each step, Mary's face grew brighter and calmer.
Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. In a remote corner of the province, where time seemed to flow slower than in the rest of the world, there lived a girl named Miranda. She was special, but not in a way that one would immediately notice. Miranda was shy and incredibly modest in her eyes. Hidden behind the right thick glasses, always burned a light of curiosity. She glided through the world as if trying to unravel the mysteries it hid. From the first days of her school life, Miranda became a target for her classmates. Her clumsy movements and mixed responses to teachers' questions drew ridicule. Her classmates, young and inexperienced, quickly coined the nickname Bogeyman for her. Miranda tried to hide from them, withdrawing into herself and immersing herself in the world of books that had become her refuge. School, a noisy life full of friendly conversations and laughter. Miranda passed by. She was lonely, as if a wall separated her from others. Failures in her studies and misunderstanding from her classmates made her days much harder. But there was one bright spot in this story: her brother James. James was a soldier serving in the army on a remote military base. He only came home once a year for a short vacation. For Miranda, every time he came home was a celebration. She waited for him as an escape from her gray and lonely everyday life. When James was home, he always tried to make her life a little brighter. He told her war stories, gave her books, and even taught her how to shoot an air rifle. James saw something special in Miranda that the others couldn't or wouldn't see. One rainy day, Miranda met her future friend Lisa. It was during recess when Miranda was walking down the hallway and heard crying. She went to the source of the sound and saw a little kitten that seemed lost and scared. Miranda did not hesitate and picked the kitten up in her arms and tried to comfort it. Suddenly, Lisa appeared from around the corner. It was Miranda's classmate, a girl with long brown hair and bright eyes. Lisa was the first beauty in the class, but she had a bad reputation because of her arrogant behavior. Lisa approached Miranda and the kitten with curiosity. But when she saw Miranda tenderly caring for the little animal, what changed in her expression? Lisa is a troublemaker, reconsidered her attitude towards her class homeland. "Did you save that kitten?" asked the girl with genuine surprise. Miranda nodded slowly, smiling. "Yes, he was lost and scared. I couldn't leave him alone." A smile slipped across Lisa's face, and she stroked the kitten's head. "He's so cute. Maybe let's find a home for him." It was the beginning of an unexpected friendship. Lisa and Miranda began to spend time together caring for the little pet, who was named Mazurchik. Lisa suddenly stopped bullying Miranda and even defended her when someone tried to play pranks on her. Together, they searched for a new home for Marshek and found it with a kind family who promised to take care of the kitten. This experience brought Lisa and Miranda even closer together. However, life at school continued to bring its challenges. One of the bullies, Mason, who had previously bullied Miranda, decided it was okay to go even further and cripple her soul. His jealousy of Miranda and Lisa's friendship led him to decide to mutilate her confidence in those around her. One rainy day, Miranda met her brother James. He was in uniform after school with red epaulets and a twinkle in his eye. Meeting him always filled Miranda with warmth and hope. She quickly told him about Mason and how he had attacked her. James expressed anger and determination lit up in his eyes. "No one should hurt you, Miranda. I've made sure that Mason won't touch you again." Back home, James found Mason and right at school gave him one last chance. He warned him that if he touched Miranda one more time, he wouldn't get away from him alive. This episode was an important turning point in Miranda's life, and she realized that she had her brother to protect her. The summer slowly faded into the sunset, leaving behind bright memories and the hope that new opportunities lay ahead. Miranda spent this time preparing for her return to school. She carefully chose her study aids, bought new notebooks and pencils, trying to stay ahead of the curve and not fall behind. She knew there would be many challenges in the new school year, but she was ready to face them head-on. Her brother James came for a short vacation, and every meeting with him was a real treat for Miranda. She told him about her academic success and her friendship with Lisa. James listened to her, encouraged her carefully, and was proud of his little sister. One day they were sitting in the cozy living room. A lamp was burning on the table in front of them, and snowflakes were slowly falling outside the window. James asked a question that Miranda had heard for the first time, but it became one of the key questions in her life. "Miranda, what do you want to do in the future?" he asked, looking at her with a serious expression on his face. Miranda looked at her hands as if searching for an answer. "I'm not sure, James. I like to paint. It makes me happy. But I don't know. Maybe I should just go to college and study something serious." James smiled and stroked her head. "Miranda, you should follow your heart. If painting makes you happy, then that should be your path. A serious education is important, but you shouldn't forget about your dreams either." This conversation left a deep mark in Miranda's soul. She realized that it is important to follow your hobbies and passions. This is what gives meaning to life. She now knew that she wanted to become an artist and dedicate herself to art. As the school year progressed, Miranda became more immersed in the world of art. She read books about great artists, attended exhibitions, and was genuinely fascinated by the work of others. Her talent only grew stronger, and her drawings became more and more expressive and profound. Her friendship with Lisa continued to grow stronger as well. They spent a lot of time together, and each gave the other inspiration. Lisa, with her vivacity and energy, gave Miranda confidence, and Miranda, with her deep sensitivity in return, helped Lisa to better understand the world around her. Despite all the positive changes, however, Miranda could not completely forget that terrible day when Mason had attacked her. The fear of him remained in her heart, and she was cautious in her interactions with other classmates. That experience taught her that you can't trust everyone indiscriminately, and she became more careful in choosing her friends. The journey in the art world was just beginning for Miranda, and she was still in school. Despite the constant challenges, she tried not to lose heart. Her days were filled with classes that seemed boring and monotonous to her. But even among the gray routine, she found bright moments. Miranda spent a lot of time in the library. It was her refuge, a place where she could escape from worldly cares and plunge into the world of books. The lines and pages became her companions and the characters her friends. She immersed herself in different worlds, and each new book opened new horizons for her. Her imagination ran wild, and she began to dream of creating her own stories and worlds. Miranda dreamed of the day she would find her puzzle and put it together. She knew that there are no rigid rules in art, and each artist finds their own way. Her brother James was the only one who always believed in her. He was in the army and came home once a year for a vacation. The meetings with him became a real holiday for Miranda. They spent days telling each other about their adventures and dreams. James was not only a big brother, but also a mentor to Miranda. He taught her courage and determination. He told Miranda, "Life may be hard, but are you stronger than you think? Believe in yourself and your abilities. You can achieve anything. What are your dreams?" These words became a source of inspiration for the girl. She knew that the path to art could be long and difficult, but she was ready to walk it. She dreamed of creating works of art that would inspire and touch people's hearts. One day, James brought Miranda an antique book about the life and work of a great artist. She read about his passion for art, his creative journey, and how he found inspiration in the most ordinary things. It had become her board book, a book she reread over and over again. James smiled, looking at his sister, and said, "Miranda, you are as strong and talented as that artist. Don't forget that. You can overcome any difficulty if you believe in yourself and your dream." Miranda embraced this book as a symbol of her passion. She was ready for hardships because she knew their journey was just beginning. Her days at school continued and Miranda faced challenges every day. She was bullied by the entire school, calling her ugly. These words cut the young girl's soul, but she didn't let them break her. She remembered her brother's words and believed that she had something special in her. One day, one of the bullies at school went too far. He took away her innocence and left her with a deep wound on her soul. This horrible incident only added to her misery, and she decided not to tell anyone about it. She was afraid that she would be judged and bullied again. Miranda tried to hide her pain behind a smile and a mask of joy. She didn't want to bother her brother, who was far away, knew he was worried about her, and didn't want to add to his worries. However, fate had something unexpected in store for them both. Summer had arrived and James had come home on vacation. Meeting his brother was like the best gift to Miranda. They spent days together walking around town, talking and laughing. One day when they were walking in the park, James noticed that his sister had become more reserved and closed off. He sensed that something was wrong with her and decided to ask her a question. Miranda, is something bothering you? Can you tell me about it? I am always here to help, he said, looking at her with concern. Miranda hesitated, but then decided to share her pain and fear with her brother. She told him about what had happened at school and how it had changed her life. James was shocked and angry at those who had hurt his sister. He hugged Miranda and told her that she was not alone, that he was always there to protect her. We will overcome together. This is Miranda. You are a strong, smart, and talented girl. Don't let this incident define your life. You have a future, and I will support you every step of the way, he said with firm confidence. Miranda felt that her brother, her support and protector, he was giving her hope and faith in herself. In that moment, she realized that she was not alone, that she had a family that would always support her in times of need. Miranda and Lisa walked through the storm, ready for the new challenges that life had in store for them. Their friendship grew stronger every day, and they supported each other in difficult moments. Lisa, a former troublemaker, reconsidered her attitude towards homeland from the classroom. They spent a lot of time together, teaching each other what they knew best. Miranda shared her knowledge of art with Lisa, and Lisa helped Miranda understand the complexities of the world, of social relationships. They became inseparable girlfriends, and their friendship was like a ray of light in a dark world. But life at school continued to present challenges. One day, when they returned from summer vacation, they learned that school had become even tougher, and some students had become more aggressive. They had to face new forms of bullying and pressure. Lisa felt supported and understood for the first time. She wasn't going to stay on the sidelines. She stood up for Miranda. And now the two of them were fighting problems together. Their friendship was their shield, and they knew they could rely on each other. One day, when one of the girls in the class tried to bully Miranda, Lisa stood up to her and said, "Enough. We're not going to let you hurt Miranda anymore. If you think you can intimidate us, you are wrong." This incident was the turning point. The girl was frightened by Lisa's determination and no longer approached Miranda. It was a small victory, but they knew they still had a lot of fighting to do. Miranda and Lisa continued to grow and develop as individuals. Their lessons in art and life made them stronger. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they were willing to step forward no matter what. Their story continued, and they knew that better moments awaited them in the future. Their friendship was their treasure, and they were willing to protect it at all costs. Miranda and Lisa were true friends with hardship and time. Their friendship was an example of the strength and unity and how the support of loved ones can change a lifetime. With each new day, their confidence grew. They were no longer afraid of those who bullied them. They began to protect not only themselves, but also other students who were also being bullied for different reasons. Their teacher, young and inspired, saw the potential in this friendship and decided to create a project at the art school where students could express their feelings and ideas through art. This project became a refuge of sorts for Miranda and Lisa. Under the guidance of their teacher, They began working on a collective project that combined painting, music, and word art. They created pieces that reflected their own experiences and feelings. It was their way of expressing the whole gamut of emotions they were experiencing in their lives. Their project became prominent in school and even won an award at a local art competition. It was a recognition of their talent and effort. Miranda and Lisa felt that they were on the right track. They also continued to pursue art separately. Miranda developed her painting skills and created amazing paintings that were admired by all who saw them. Her work became sought after in school exhibitions, and she was even invited to exhibit her paintings in a local gallery show. Lisa, on the other hand, began to delve deeper into music. She studied guitar and piano and began writing her own songs. Her music became an expression of her feelings and emotions, and she sang with such passion that her lyrics touched the hearts of all who listened. But of course, there are always obstacles on the road to success. One day, on the day of an important concert, Lisa accidentally threw her music case into the trash. When did she realize she'd lost all her songs? She almost cried. But Miranda was there to support her. Together, they dug through the trash and even got to the custodian in the school restroom to find the lost sheet music. After hours of searching, they finally found the pencil case and made it back in time for the concert. Lisa performed her songs with such sincerity that the audience was amazed. After Miranda and Lisa's successful concert, the party was fun. Students and parents and teachers gathered to celebrate the successes of the young talents. Miranda and Lisa were glowing with joy and satisfaction. However, the joy did not last long. Shortly after the concert, Miranda discovered that her briefcase had been opened and something had been taken out. At first, she couldn't understand what was missing, but then she realized that her personal drawings and sketches had disappeared. Miranda's heart sank into her heels. She knew that one of her classmates clearly disapproved of her success and decided to strike a blow. It was a blow to the sorest spot in her art. Miranda appealed to the teachers and school administration, but proving who had done it proved difficult. She was disappointed and outraged that one of her fellow humans could do such a cruel thing. However, Miranda did not give up. She began to recreate her work from scratch, restoring what had been lost. It was another difficult stage in her journey into art, but she moved forward with determination. In the meantime, Lisa also faced challenges. She decided to record her songs in the studio to share her music with a larger audience. But when she received the recording of her songs, she found that the sound quality left much to be desired. One of her classmates had clearly put a stick in the wheel. Lisa was disappointed, but she didn't give up. She began to learn the technical aspects of recording and refined her skills. Her drive for perfection and desire to share her music with the world was stronger than any obstacle. Miranda and Lisa continued to evolve as an artist, a musician. Their art became not just a way to express themselves, but also a way to fight back against those who tried to hinder them. They did not give up in the face of adversity. Their passion for art was unwavering. Theirs was a story of perseverance and fortitude. They continued their artistic journey, ready for new challenges, knowing that even in the most difficult moments, they could rely on their passion and friendship. Miranda and Lisa continued to explore the world of art. Their passion for creating was unbreakable. They knew their friendship was something special, but the past was still a part of their story. As they grew closer to each other, changes began to happen at school. Lisa, formerly known as the girl who supported Miranda's bullying, tried to change her reputation. She saw how Miranda always found the strength to defend the weak, including the little kittens on the street. Lisa thought that maybe she too could earn the friendship of her classmates if she tried to be a better person. However, her attempt at change was unsuccessful. When her classmates saw her in Miranda's company, they raised their eyebrows and even mocked her. She was disappointed to find herself outside of the pack she wanted to find her place in. That disappointment intensified when the taunts and mockery began again. They were less fierce, but more sly. Lisa, sitting down in her seat in class, often found her desk covered in water. She concentrated on the lesson, didn't notice the wetness until she sat down, and the class would start laughing. Such incidents were subtle and telling. They emphasized that Lisa was still not a full member of the school pack, despite her attempts to change. Her friend Miranda, who always stood at her defense, came to the rescue again. But this time, the bullying was more devious and harder to fight. Lisa felt trapped. She tried to gain the friendship and acceptance of her classmates, but instead, she faced even more difficulties. Her past, as well as the ridicule we did with, shadowed over her present, and she could not rid herself of that shadow. Miranda, seeing her friend suffering, became even closer to her. She understood how hard it can be to change and find your place in the world, especially at school where bullying can be brutal. She was supportive of Lisa, trying to help her overcome these difficulties. However, there were also bright moments in their lives when they created together. They forgot the mean words and taunts. Their art was their salvation, and they knew it could change the world around them. Lisa contemplated ending her friendship with Miranda. The bitterness of the recent taunts and the laughter of her classmates mingled in her mind. She began to question whether it was worth continuing her relationship with Miranda if it brought such more humiliation. The morning after the water on the chair incident, Lisa did not socialize with her friend. They walked past each other without paying attention. It was the first time they had not socialized at school, and it was painful and unaccustomed. However, even without communication, they could not avoid being bullied by their classmates. Their coworkers were unhappy and found new ways to prank both of them. They poured water on the chairs through their pencil case and all over the classroom, and even made practical jokes, enshrining them in their textbooks. Miranda, on the other hand, tried to find a way to get back at her classmates, but she was unwilling to do it with the same cruelty they displayed. Various ideas crossed her mind, but they all seemed too cruel and undignified. She realized that revenge would not solve the problem, and that violence would only make things worse. She felt stumped, not knowing how to protect herself and Lisa. Time passed, and both girls continued to feel the pain of the taunts and bullying. But one day, Lisa remembered the entire journey they had traveled together. She remembered those moments when Miranda was the only person who believed in her and supported her. She remembered how the two of them had rescued a little kitten, how they created art that expressed their feelings and dreams. These memories filled her heart with warmth and hope. Lisa realized that her friendship with Miranda was something unique and valuable, despite all the hardships. And in that moment, she made a decision. She decided that she would not abandon her friend despite the ridicule and bullying. Lisa turned back to Miranda, smiled, and said, "Let's not let them ruin our friendship. We can get through this together like we always have." Miranda smiled back and agreed. They realized that friendship is not only about laughter and joy, but also about support in difficult moments. They were willing to walk through the storm together as best friends. The next day at school, everything went quietly and unnoticed. Classmates didn't bully, not Miranda, not Lisa. That was unusual. And all because there was a school-wide inspection that day. Teachers were especially vigilant and demanding about uniform behavior and classroom order. Usually bullying happened when the teachers weren't around. On this day, they were almost always there and present. This made the atmosphere in the classroom more tense, and classmates became more cautious. They squinted at Miranda and Lisa, and if anything, they threw papers at them at most. After the school day, Miranda and Lisa decided to take a walk in the park. They needed some rest and solitude. After a busy day at school, the park was their sanctuary, a place where they could relax and forget about all the worries of school. They walked silently along the paths of the park, listening to the sound of the leaves under their feet. The winds were beginning to bring the first signs of autumn, and the leaves were beginning to change their color to bright shades of red and yellow. The air was cool, but pleasant. As they walked, they stopped periodically at the pond, watching the water birds and listening to their singing. It was a moment of peace and tranquility in their lives where they could just enjoy the moment. But despite the pleasant day, The clouds in their friendship still hadn't completely disappeared. Miranda sometimes wondered how she could get back at her classmates for all the bullying, but she knew she didn't want to grovel to their level of cruelty. Lisa, on the other hand, felt that her friendship with Miranda had become an excessive burden for her. She questioned whether she should continue the relationship if it was causing so much pain. But at the same time, she couldn't forget all the times Miranda had been of true support to her. Night began to descend on the park, and the girls decided to head home. They walked in silence, each immersed in their own thoughts and feelings. Friendship was like a thin wire that sometimes required a gentle cord of paternity. They knew that the next day at school might bring new challenges and trials, but they also knew that they were ready to walk through the storm together as best friends, regardless of any difficulties that might come their way. Miranda woke up exactly on her alarm clock. As always, she immediately plunged into her morning routine, washed her face, ate, dressed, and got ready for a new day at school. But her morning was filled with anxiety. She couldn't help but think about Lisa and what awaited them at school today. As she walked down the road to school, her thoughts swirled around her friend and her classmates. Each new day was a challenge for them, and Miranda knew that she would have to face these challenges head-on. Lisa was already waiting for Miranda at the entrance of the school. They greeted each other with a smile to each other. But inside both girls, anxiety was simmering. Already at the entrance of the school, they heard giggles and taunts towards them, but they decided to ignore it and silently headed to their classroom. In the classroom, the familiar sight of water on Miranda's desk awaited them, but they didn't even pay attention to it. They were used to these childish pranks. They just wiped the water off and sat down. The teacher hadn't come in yet, but in the meantime, Miranda and Lisa were trying to concentrate on the lesson, though Miranda had other thoughts. She was thinking about her brother, who was due to arrive at the end of spring. His visit was her best hope for a bright future and encouragement, but her musings were interrupted when she was called to the blackboard. She didn't expect it and found herself unprepared to answer. She had to stand in front of the whole class, feeling the stares of her classmates, and she couldn't answer the teacher's question correctly. The result was a disappointing D. The situation did not improve during recess. Classmates found new ideas for bullying, throwing their pencils in the trash or even coloring their notebooks. The day dragged on slowly. The girls tried to ignore the taunts and bullying. Their friendship was their pillar, and they didn't want anything to destroy it. When night fell, Miranda and Lisa were home again, tired and from a busy day at school. They knew that tomorrow would bring a new challenge, and they were ready to face it together. As always, supporting each other. Friendship was their weapon in this struggle, and they hoped it would help them get through the storm and find a brighter future together. As winter approached, Miranda and Lisa were already beginning to savor the first snow and the joyous winter games. They dreamed of snowball fights, making snowmen, and winter walks. It was a time of year they adored. However, Odnoklassniki did not stop bullying the girls. Miranda began to wonder what the reason for this bullying was. She spent countless hours wondering what she was doing wrong. She could not understand why her appearance was the cause of ridicule and violence from her peers. These reflections were painful for her. Lisa, on the other hand, knew that the bullying stemmed from their friendship. She was ugly and classy. Her friendship with Miranda drew the attention of her classmates to her. Lisa saw them making fun of Miranda, and it hurt her to see her friend being bullied. But she also realized that her friendship with Miranda was the most precious thing to her, and she was not going to change her principles because of the ridicule. One thing led to another. Winter was coming closer and closer. The girls dreamed of the first snow and the joyful moments it would bring. They planned games of snowballs, making snowmen, and even skiing trips. Miranda was able to keep in touch with her brother James through mail and sometimes the phone. They wrote letters to each other, and Miranda was always happy when another letter from him arrived. In these letters, they shared their thoughts, impressions, and news from their lives. However, when James asked her how Miranda was doing, she often answered normally. Not wanting to tell them the truth about what was going on at her school, it hurt her to think that her brother might be worried and anxious about her, about the bullying and ridicule she was experiencing. She wanted to keep the appearance of a strong and independent girl in front of her brother so she wouldn't bother him. James, for his part, also tried not to burden his sister with his worries. He was away from home, serving in the army, and he wanted Miranda to feel good and safe. He was the one who always believed in her and supported her. His letters were true celebrations for Miranda, moments of bright hope in her hard daily life. So Miranda and James kept in touch through letters and short phone conversations, but each of them tried not to bother the other with their problems and worries. It was their way of keeping in touch and maintaining hope for a brighter future despite all the difficulties they faced. With the onset of winter, snowdrifts became commonplace. But for Miranda and Lisa, it also meant more ridicule and humiliation from their classmates. As soon as the first snow fell, they began to use it as a tool for bullying. They came up with new ways to bully. Some of them would push some of the girls into snowdrifts, making them fall. Others would do tripping, putting their feet up to make someone trip and fall face first into the snow, and some would just throw snowballs. But they did it with such force that they could hurt. One of the Mason boys went too far. He and two of his friends got into a fight. Collision when she was walking home alone. They dropped her in a snowdrift and gave her a terrible bullying, water bluff. She was all wet with tears. It was one of the worst moments of her life when Miranda finally made it home. Her parents noticed something was wrong with her clothes and hair. They met her with questions about what was wrong. Miranda, struggling to hold back tears and trying not to tell them about the bullying, said she fell hard in a snowdrift. Her parents were concerned, but she didn't want to worry them with her problems. Such incidents began to recur with appalling regularity. For Miranda and Lisa, winter was a time of fear and humiliation, and they tried to hide what was happening at school from their parents and teachers. But pain was building up in their hearts. They found it harder and harder to hide their suffering. Despite the hard days at school in the winter, Miranda had some bright moments in her life. She loved playing snowballs with her parents, and that was a real comfort to her. They would spend hours outdoors, dreaming snow into each other and laughing. But playing with Lisa was becoming a rarity. Lisa, trying to avoid being humiliated by her classmates, tried to stay away from Miranda. She didn't want their friendship to become the cause of more ridicule. Sometimes, however, they still managed to meet and have fun. They even made a snowman one cold day and took a real carrot for his nose. These moments brought joy and warmth to the gray winter days. But unfortunately, the bright moments were rare and short. The days at school were slow, and sometimes classmates were particularly cruel. They not only covered Miranda with snow, but also created funny snow looks that caused the whole school to laugh. Lisa, watching this, felt more isolated from Miranda. She was afraid of being the object of ridicule and chose to stay away. Miranda, on the other hand, couldn't understand why everyone was doing this to her. She wondered if it was because of her looks or her friendship with Lisa. Why couldn't she find a way to defend herself and respond to the bullying? She wanted revenge somehow, but she wasn't a violent girl, and ideas didn't come to mind. Thus, winter became a time of not only cold days, but also cold relationships at school. But even in this bleak environment, Miranda and Lisa continued to exist, struggling with ridicule and perseverance. In the morning, Miranda, as usual, woke up exactly on her alarm clock. It was hard for her to get out of bed on cold winter days. But the schoolgirl's responsibilities didn't wait. She slowly got up, stretched, and started her usual morning ritual. I washed my face, got dressed, made breakfast, and packed my things. There was already a thick shroud of snow outside, and the drifts reached her knees. Miranda knew she would have to walk through this blizzard to get to school. It was quiet outside, only the creaking of snow beneath her footsteps, and the wind that blew through her warm clothes were reminders that winter was approaching. On the way to school, Miranda thought about her best friend Lisa. They had been inseparable since first grade and always walked to school together. But with winter coming, they rarely saw each other. Lisa tried to avoid meeting on the street so that Miranda wouldn't be subjected to ridicule and bullying from her classmates. And even though Miranda understood the reason for this aloofness, she was still sad. When Miranda finally reached the school, she was struck by the emptiness on the doorstep. Usually Lisa was already waiting for her here, and they would enter the school building together. But today the threshold was empty and Miranda felt lonely. She decided to walk to school alone. On the way, she heard taunts, felt papers flying at her feet and at her head. She tried to ignore it and just walked forward with a sad expression on her face. When Miranda finally entered the classroom, she saw Lisa sitting by the window and looking off into the distance. There were 3 notes on Miranda's desk. First, she read the note from Lisa, sorry for not meeting her on the doorstep in a hurry. Miranda felt relieved. But the other 2 notes caused her concern. One was from Mason, her classmate, and the other was from Nastya, a classmate. They said beware when leaving the school, and come back later. Miranda shifted her gaze from the notes to Lisa. Lisa wasn't looking at her, and Miranda realized that something was wrong. The notes had caused her to feel uneasy, and she didn't know what to do next. But one thing was clear: she couldn't ignore the warnings in the notes. The class went on quietly as usual. Silence reigned in the classroom. The teacher was writing slowly on the blackboard. Miranda sat on the front row and concentrated, gazing into the textbook. She loved the subject, and she was trying to study hard. Her eyes were determined, and she was ready to answer the teacher's questions. Next to Miranda on the same front row sat Lisa. She too was looking ahead, but her gaze was blank, as if she was not seeing the class, but something far away and unattainable. There was no expression on her face. It was as if she was absent from this place and time. The teacher continued his story, but Miranda was already prepared for the answer. She knew the material and was waiting to be asked a question. The correct answers were rolling around in her head, and she was confident in her knowledge. Lisa, sitting next to her, did not participate in the lesson. Her thoughts were somewhere far away in the extracurricular room. She didn't listen to what the teacher was saying or see the formulas written on the blackboard. There was no place in her world for learning and knowledge. The lesson continued, but to Lisa it was just endless mumbling, carrying everything past her. She didn't want to learn, didn't want to think about learning. Her mind was occupied with something else, something important and mysterious. At the end of class, the teacher announced that there would be no homework for the next day. Miranda and Lisa gathered their things and, without a word, headed for the exit of the classroom to a whole class that was waiting for something interesting to happen. It looked strange. They walked past classmates who were whispering and laughing, but Miranda and Lisa paid no attention to them. Outside, a blizzard was waiting for them. The snow fell softly and covered the ground with a white and fluffy layer. The air was cool, fresh. Snowflakes flew in their faces, and Miranda and Lisa felt them melting on their skin. The snowstorm gave the street a special atmosphere. It was as if magic was happening right now. Lisa and Miranda walked slowly through the snowdrifts without hurrying, looking at every snowflake flying in their direction. They walked side by side, but each was deep in thought. Miranda thought about her family and her brother James. He was far away. He was in the army, and she hadn't seen him in years, but they kept in touch through letters and phone conversations. James had always been a great friend and mentor to her. He helped her with her studies and advice, and Miranda missed him very much. Lisa, looking ahead through the blizzard, pondered why she felt so alienated from the others. She didn't want to be part of this world where ridicule and bullying ruled. She longed for something more, something that was real and genuine. Miranda returned home after another hard day at school. She crossed the threshold of her house, feeling lethargic and tired in every movement. It was already starting to get dark outside, and her parents' house looked cozy and warm on this winter evening. After Miranda took off her school uniform and changed into comfortable home clothes, she didn't go straight to her homework as she usually did. Instead, she headed into the living room and sat in a cozy chair by the large window that overlooked the street. Outside the window was a winter fairy tale. Snow was slowly and quietly falling to the ground, forming fluffy drifts. Everything around was covered in a blanket of white, and the world seemed incredibly pure and unvirtuous. Miranda looked at this winter magic and felt the tension leave her body. The snowflakes continued to dance in the air like little angels, bringing goodness and tranquility to the world. Winter was creating its magic, and Miranda was completely immersed in the moment. She closed her eyes to sink even deeper into this atmosphere. She wanted to feel a part of this natural beauty, to forget all her problems and worries. The snow was gently touching her face, and she felt it chilly, but it was a pleasant sensation. Suddenly, memories from her childhood surfaced in her mind. Back then, she often played outside with her parents. They would build snowmen and have real snowball fights. She was a happy girl then, and snow was her faithful companion. With each passing minute, Miranda was sinking deeper into her memories. She reflected on the days when her friendship with Lisa was real and unwavering. In her soul was born the hope of change, that they could regain what they had before. Winter, that mysterious season, seemed to promise that miracles could happen. Miranda sat silently by the window and thought about how to change her life, how to regain her friendship with Lisa. She felt that this snowy world gave her hope and strength for change. So she sat by the window, immersed in her thoughts, listening to the whispering snow and dreaming of what the coming of spring might bring. Gradually, the night and the snow came early, sparkling, and the heat began to take on the mysterious hues of twilight. The shadows on the drifts grew longer, and the whole world seemed shrouded in an invisible veil of mystery. Miranda continued to sit at the window, looking out at this shimmering songs. Dusk in the distance heard the wind, rustling the branches of the trees, as if inviting a glimpse into the vast world of winter. Evening stars slowly appeared on the celestial sphere, adding extra mystery to this moment. On the street, the windows were already decorated with bright garlands, creating the atmosphere of the upcoming holidays. The light from the street lamps reflected off the snow, creating a shimmering glow. And Miranda felt like she was in a fairy tale. She was alone with this incredible beauty of the winter night, and it brought her peace. Below her windows, she could hear the distant sound of cars getting lost in the blizzard and a chorus of melodious voices singing Christmas songs. As the night grew darker, Miranda began to slowly make her way through her thoughts. She was reminded of the lessons she had repeatedly put aside, giving herself some time to think and relax. But now that the world outside had fallen into dusk, she knew it was time to return to her duties. The words of her parents, who always emphasized the importance of education and knowledge, echoed in her mind. She didn't want to disappoint them. And besides, learning was one way to get away from problems and unpleasant memories. Miranda got up from her chair and headed to her desk, where her textbooks and notebooks were waiting. But even as she sat down to study, her thoughts still hovered somewhere in that winter night where snow and stars created magic. Finishing her lessons, Miranda settled into her bed. The wind was still blustering outside, and the snow continued to fall, covering the world with its soft blanket. To the sound of the wind and the blizzard, Miranda fell asleep, carrying with her the promise of a new day and the hope that things would soon change. The new year was slowly but surely approaching the small town where Miranda lived. On this day, the small town was transformed into a fairy tale place, decorated with lights and garland dresses. In the morning, Miranda awoke to the lights streaming through the curtains into her room. Lazily pulled, she stared with a smile at the steely snow outside her window. The snowfall had passed during the night, and now blankets of snow were rolling all over nature. Miranda had always loved snow, and this first snow of the year made her mood even more festive. As she got out of bed, she felt the pleasant warmth of home. Her parents were already in the kitchen preparing breakfast, and the aroma of fresh pancakes filled the entire house. Miranda joined the family table and treated them to pancakes with jam. The parents smiled and exchanged plans for the day. Today was their day off. and the family was going to go to the holiday bazaar downtown to pick out gifts and enjoy the holiday atmosphere. After breakfast, Miranda went to her room and started choosing an outfit for the New Year's bazaar. She wanted to look especially bright and beautiful on this day. There were many options in her closet, but she decided to opt for the beautiful dress her grandmother had given her when she returned to the living room. Her parents cheered her approvingly, and they headed downtown with smiles. The streets were festooned with garlands, and the storefronts sparkled under the mixed decorations. People hurried about their business, picking up gifts and greetings. At the bazaar, Miranda and her family spent a lot of time choosing gifts for family and friends. They tasted hot pancakes with honey, plain mulled wine, enjoying the holiday atmosphere. A huge Christmas tree decorated with brightly colored balls and twinkling lights was set up in the main square of the town. In the evening, after returning home, the family gathered around the fireplace. The parents stoked the fire, and Miranda looked out the window where the snowfall was still continuing. Silence reigned outside, and it was a moment of complete peace and tranquility. Miranda laid down on the couch, tangled in the plaid, and began to read a book. It was getting darker outside the window, and the pleasant smell of the dinner her parents were preparing was spreading in the house. There came a moment when she forgot about everything in the world and completely immersed herself in the world of the book. The evening passed quietly and cozily. There was silence inside and outside. Miranda finished reading, put the book aside, and settled into bed. Her mood was great, and she fell asleep dreaming of the upcoming new year and all the events that awaited her. Miranda rose out of bed in the middle of the winter morning, her face lit up with anticipation of the new day. Outside the window was a true fairy tale. Everything was shrouded in snow, and every step on the snow made a distinctive crunching sound. The room smelled of freshly baked pancakes and jam that my mother was preparing. Breakfast was a real feast, pancakes and hot tea. Merry stories of my parents about how they used to spend winter vacations in their youth. The day after tomorrow, and Miranda, as always, started to get ready for school. She chose a beautiful school uniform that gave her confidence and carefully calculated her hair. All her textbooks, notebooks were neatly stacked in her backpack, and she was ready to start the day. Her mom handed her a thermos of hot cocoa for recess, and Miranda smiled gratefully. She walked out of the house and headed toward school, savoring the moment. The streets were covered in white snow, and the sun made it glisten, and despite the cold, the air was clean and illuminating. Miranda listened to her footsteps crunching through the snow and looked at the houses decorated with lights and garlands. When she arrived at school, she was greeted by her friend Lisa, who was also in a good mood. They discussed plans for the day and exchanged news. Her friend had a note suggesting that they meet up after school. This added a note of mystery to the day, and Miranda looked forward to the end of the school day to see what Lisa wanted to talk about. Miranda stood on the doorstep of the school, waiting for her friend Lisa. The winter day was quiet and cold, and every breath filled with a slight chill in the air. The snow fell slowly, like little crystal shimmers, and made a white blanket across the ground. Lisa, in her red wool hat and warm down jacket, she approached Miranda with a smile. Her eyes sparkled when she saw her friend. "Hi, Miranda," said Lisa, ready for a new adventure. Miranda answered her with a smile. She always enjoyed spending time with Lisa. Together, they experienced so many interesting moments. "Of course," Lisa replied Miranda, "the snow is so magical. Today maybe we'll sculpt a snowman." "That sounds great," agreed Lisa. So the two friends started their day enjoying the winter beauty. They took a walk through the park, leaving their footprints in the snow. In the distance, they noticed children playing snowballs, and with a smile, they decided to join in. However, despite the joyous day with Lisa, the shadows of recent events still hung in the air. The recent bullying and taunts from classmates. It wasn't easy to forget. Miranda and Lisa tried not to think about it, but the heavy burden still pressed on their friendship. After the outing, Miranda and Lisa returned home, and each spent the rest of the day thinking about past and future events. But in the evening, when they met again, the light of hope burned in the eyes of both girls. No unfavorable circumstance could destroy their friendship. Miranda began, "Lisa, I want to talk to you about something important. It's no secret that we're best friends, and together we've experienced so many moments of happiness and joy. But, as you know, I've had some difficult moments lately." Miranda listened attentively to her friend. She could see that something sad and heavy was hiding in her eyes. "There are rumors going around the school," Miranda continued, "Lisa, and I know you are noticing how the relationships in class are changing. I try to stay out of it, but sometimes it gets too hard." Miranda understood what Lisa was talking about. They had been inseparable friends for a long time, but lately things had been changing. The bullying from classmates was getting worse, and even Lisa, as the older and more popular girl, it was hard to deal with. But Miranda continued, "Lisa, I don't want our friendship to be the loss of my reputation. You've always been there for me, and I appreciate that more than anything. I remember everything we've been through together, and I wouldn't want to dissolve our friendship. But understand, if I'm friends with you, my classmates are bullying me too. I need to rebuild my reputation in class. I want to have a normal life and blend in with them. I'm sorry." Miranda smiled sadly at Lisa. She replied, "I will always be here for you. Nothing will be able to keep us apart, and together we will overcome all difficulties. Let's not let these rumors and bullying get in our way." Lisa looked thoughtfully at Miranda, as if a struggle was unfolding inside her between the desire to preserve her friendship and the fear of the rumors and bullying. Her eyes filled with tears, and she slowly said, "Miranda, you probably don't understand. I really want to end our friendship." Miranda shuddered in surprise at those words pierced her heart like a sharp needle. The smile disappeared from her face. It became painful. Tears started coming from behind her eyes, and she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Why did Lisa whisper to Miranda, trying to hold back tears? "We're best friends. We're always together. Why do you want to end our friendship?" Lisa was in pain too, seeing how Miranda was reacting to her words. She shook her head slightly and muttered, "It's hard to explain. Miranda, I'm afraid of more ridicule, afraid of losing my place in the class. I don't know what to do." Miranda slowly lowered her head and her tears increased. She was hurt that her best friend was backing down, but she also felt compassion for Lisa, who was trapped between wanting to keep the friendship alive and fear of what would happen next. Miranda continued, "Lisa, please understand me. I don't want you to feel worse because of me. Maybe in time things will change, and we can be together again." With these words, Lisa turned and ran away, leaving Miranda standing in the snow with a broken heart. Miranda slowly walked home. Tears streamed down her face, and her heart was filled with bitterness and sadness. This day turned out to be a far cry from their fun snow adventure, and Miranda couldn't imagine how she would go on without her best friend. The next morning came again, shrouded in a gray shroud of sadness, which like a heavy cloak descended on Miranda's soul. Her dream was interrupted, and the moment of conversation with Lisa tormented her even in her sleep. It was as if invisible chains were clutching her heart. Waking up, Miranda already felt that this day was going to be particularly hard. The morning outside the window, slowly awakening from the winter sleep, the soft light of the sun shone through the curtains, casting light streaks on the walls of the room. Miranda rose from her bed as if to heave an invisible weight of her mind. But even the water seemed cold to her without a vital sadness, rolled around her like an invisible cloak that clung to her body and had no desire to come off. Breakfast was put on the table, but Miranda had no appetite. She ignored the sandwiches and the bowl of porridge, as if she had lost interest in food. There was weariness in her eyes. Her face expressed indifference to the world around her, rather than any emotion. On this day, the street was empty and quiet, as if nature itself understood her inner state and decided to keep silent. Under Miranda's feet, the snow crunched like 1,000,000 small, fragile crystals, and every step left a trace on the snow-white blanket. A blizzard rushed past passing cars, But Miranda didn't feel the cold wind on her skin and paid no attention to the fleeting moments of life around her. School was the same as it had always been. Rumors and ridicule were everywhere, and Miranda felt the gazes of her classmates fixed on her. As she entered the classroom, she noticed Lisa talking to her classmates. These conversations were accompanied by laughter and irony, and Miranda realized that her presence in the school was still an object of ridicule. It was like a stab to the heart. Miranda's eyes slid sadly toward Lisa, and she felt the bitter pain once again gripping her soul. She slowly and indifferently lowered herself to her seat, and instead of opening her textbook, her gaze froze on the window. Snowflakes slowly circled behind the glass, creating an illusion of weightlessness and tranquility that wasn't there inside. Miranda's in that quiet world. Outside the window, she saw the slow tango of snowflakes, as if each one was a gentle kiss of winter, yet fluffy covered the ground in their fragile, crystal-clear forms. She saw a reflection of her own thoughts and experiences. The light blue light of the snowy day filtered into the classroom through the window, and the sun's rays seemed to stroke the surface of the lens table, leaving a warm trail. But that warmth did not reach her soul, which was shrouded in cold, disappointment, and grief. Outside the window, the play of snow and wind continued. Gentle flakes slowly descended towards the ground like fluffy cakes and flew down into the arms of winter. Winter was already covered with a layer of snow, as if she was lying in wait for new adventures. Forgetting her past worries, the wind whispered its stories quietly among the bare trees, and Miranda could only guess what it was telling. The world outside the window was slow and calm, as if it knew not the troubles and unrest that filled her heart. It was an oasis of peace in a world full of bustle and deceptively brightness. Miranda continued to stare out the window as if she were looking for answers to her own questions in this winter beauty. The bell rang, and that day the classroom was filled with a heavy atmosphere that seemed to muffle the sounds of the teacher's words. Miranda, the entire class just sat, shrouded in sadness, and longing. Her attention was far away in a world of her own reflection. Each moment seemed like an eternity, and she left her gaze to the laptop, on the screen of which meaningless numbers and letters fell. Her soul felt heavy and empty, as if a huge hole had been dug inside her, and she had fallen into it. Sounds from the textbook, the words of the teacher, the fumbling of pens, and the occasional laughter of classmates floated past her as if in another dimension. Her lessons lay indifferently on her desk, and she didn't react to the chaos around her. Those around her, especially those who had arranged the water and glue incident, were becoming invisible. Her steel walls of emotional defense seemed not just secure, but impenetrable. She didn't allow her emotions to come out, even if it was pain. But despite the outer peace, there were questions burning inside Miranda, and big ones. Why had Lisa decided to end their friendship? What had she done wrong? What could be done to make things go back? These questions spun around in her head like a wheel of fortune, but with no obvious answers. Each lesson was like a stone being added to the pile of her mental burden, but she couldn't let go of her thoughts of Lisa, couldn't stop thinking about the times they had been inseparable friends. On the way home on this frosty day, Miranda was literally being bombarded with snowballs. At first, she tried to dodge this mocking attack. But as time went by, her movements became more timid, and slowly the snowballs flew towards her from all directions, as if fired from the imaginary cannons of everyone around her. White light snowflakes lay on her clothes and hair. The rustling and squeaking snow under her feet greeted her every step, making it seem as if nature itself was participating in this attack. But Miranda continued walking silently and without any reaction to the taunts. The winter morning turned into a winter day, and the surroundings became quiet, as if nature too was holding its breath, watching this lone figure. Miranda slowly made her way forward, looking down as if each trail in front of her was assigned to somewhere far away. The snow seemed endless, and Miranda simply walked nowhere on an empty road with not a soul in sight. The snowfall incessantly invited sounds, and Miranda could only hear her own inner monologue, which seemed to be stuck on thinking about Lisa's words. Images of the scene flashed like faces in the air, but she couldn't gather her thoughts. The snow was still flying in her direction, but she was no longer reacting to it. She walked through that white shroud as if trying to pass through time and leave behind all the painful memories and doubts. When Miranda returned home, she felt the evening light streaming into her room, flooding its dark walls with a soft golden hue. This light filled her heart with warmth and joy, for it reminded her of her upcoming meeting with the closest person in the world, her brother James, with emotion and anticipation. Miranda picked up her smartphone and began typing messages for him. Her fingers glided lightly across the keys as if playing a snowy melody, filling each letter with her feelings. "Hi, James. How are you doing? I miss you." That's what her words sounded like, full of tenderness and anticipation. She pressed send and looked at the screen, eagerly waiting for a reply. Seconds seemed like an eternity as she waited. The first hour passed agonizingly, slowly, as if time had slowed its course to increase her anxiety. The next hour seemed even longer, and Miranda began to worry. Suddenly, her phone made a notification sound, and her heart took a leap. Frantically, she opened the message and her eyes drifted to the words written on the screen. "It's okay. Sis, how are you?" That was the reply from James. Miranda wondered. As usual, she decided to lie to her brother by texting normally. But it wasn't like that at all. She just didn't want to alarm him. Miranda gazed out into the vast, snow-covered landscape as she walked to school. There was an incredible calmness all around on this morning winter day, and it was as if all outside sounds were hushed, absorbed by the soft cover of snow. The trees from the mountains were beaming under the weight of their winter attire, and the roofs of the houses, as if adorned with diamonds, shone in the sunlight. Penetrating through the clouds, the snow fell slowly from the heavens, as if shimmering with emeralds, crystals, and Miranda couldn't help but marvel at this natural beauty. Winter was a magical season, and she knew that soon this magical landscape would disappear, giving way to the spring atmosphere. She began to daydream as if she herself would be a part of this fabulous winter scene. In her imagination, she blended with nature, as if becoming an integral part of it. It was at this moment, as she was deep in her reverie, that her silence was interrupted by a voice that was not friendly. It came back, and her heart was behind her again. Standing there was Mason, the main bully of the school, the person who hurt Miranda the most. He chuckled seeing her looking dreamily at the winter nature, and suddenly, like a lightning strike, Mason pushed her forcefully. Miranda lost her balance and fell to the snow. She felt the cold and wet through her thin layer of clothing, but her pain wasn't just physical. Much more, her heart was torn by the injustice and cruelty of this attack. With difficulty rising to her feet, Miranda tried to object, but her words were interrupted by the laughter of Mason and his friends. They took her backpack from her and, laughing, picked her up by her arms and legs. Miranda looked at them helplessly. Her heart pounded harder with fear. Suddenly, she was in the air and slowly realized that she was being thrown into a drift left by the snow after another snowstorm. The fall wasn't so hard. Miranda landed softly. But at that moment, as she lay in the snowdrift, there was no way she could have realized what was happening. Mason and his friends opened her briefcase and dumped all the contents onto the cold, snow-covered ground. Textbooks, pencils, and notebooks scattered all over the playground, like stars in the sky. Miranda looked at this chaos and powerlessly covered her face with her hands. Her soul was torn into many tiny fragments. Her dreams and hopes seemed to be blown away by the wind. At this moment, she did not care about the beauty of winter and fairy tales. She felt only the bitterness of betrayal and cruelty. Miranda remained sitting in the snowdrift, immersed in her own thoughts and emotions, as if in some gloomy void. The snow continued to fall in slow swirls, enveloping her world, its cold tenderness lifting a heavy sigh from her chest. But like frost, it froze in the air. A storm of varied feelings raged inside Miranda. She felt humiliation at what had happened, helplessness in front of those who had chosen to rain down their anger on her again and again. Her large hands, frozen from the snow, reminded her of the reality of what was happening. But the most important thing she felt, it was loneliness. Miranda, overcoming the heaviness within herself, gathered up the notebooks and textbooks of the snow-covered ground. Her fingers were wet with the risky cold, but she felt no discomfort. She was used to the cold by now, as well as the bitter taunts of her classmates. As she got up and headed towards the school, Miranda couldn't help but notice how the snowmen she had seen yesterday were now beginning to be covered in a layer of fresh snow. It was like a symbol of new beginnings, an opportunity to fix what had gone wrong. She paid no attention to the snow spears that periodically flew at her from her classmates. Those jokes and taunts had long since stopped hurting her. Miranda was stronger than her abusers could have imagined. As she approached the school, she was confronted by the surprised looks of her classmates, who apparently didn't expect her to return after what had happened. One of them joked that she wouldn't make it home. However, Miranda didn't pay any attention to them. She simply smiled and went on her way. She was determined to prove that despite all the difficulties, she would not give up. A familiar scene greeted her in class. Lisa was standing among her classmates and laughing as well. This time, Miranda didn't bother to weigh her words. Her friends didn't try to talk to her or change anything. She just sat down in her seat and tiredly began to do her homework, as if she had fallen into the calm sea of classes. She tried to escape into the world of knowledge and temporarily forget about outside gatherings. As the lessons progressed, Miranda felt the fatigue come over her. Her eyes began to close on their own, and slowly but inevitably, she started for the demanding textbook, began to blend into the world of her own thoughts and dreams. So Miranda, who had survived the morning bullying and hopes for a bright future, fell asleep for lessons, forgetting for a while about what was around her, and going into a world of her own thoughts and hopes. Miranda fell asleep at school. Her head slumped on her desk, and sleep slowly but inevitably engulfed her in a dream world where reality intertwined with fantasy. She found herself back in the same place among her classmates, including Lisa. They were smiling, genuinely pleased by her presence, as if there had never been any disagreements or conflicts. The happy moments continued in her dream. Together with her friends and Lisa, they were running through snowy fields, catching snowflakes on their tongues and laughing until they fell. Miranda felt the warmth and helpless joy she missed so much in real life. When the dream transported her home, her brother was already waiting impatiently for her. They embraced, and Miranda felt the immense love and support he had always given her. These were the moments of happiness that Miranda craved so much in real life. But reality caught up with her again. The bell for recess sounded, and she woke up, realizing that it was only a dream. She felt the living warmth being replaced by the cold of reality, and a desolation engulfed her. Miranda noticed that something was giving her discomfort in her head. She ran her hand through her hair and found the cause of her discomfort. There was gum in her hair. The mixed snow and cold wind gave this gum an unsightly look. It was another ridiculous act of bullying that Miranda struggled to ignore. Gathering her thoughts, she slowly and carefully removed the gum from her hair, feeling the stares of her classmates. Back to real life, Miranda thought about how much her dreams and desires were affecting her. She decided that she had to find a way to resolve her conflict with Lisa and regain her lost relationship, to experience some happiness and warmth. Even in reality, Miranda felt that this moment was crucial. She decided to put all her heart and feelings into this letter to convey to Lisa the sincerity of her words. Before she started writing, Miranda looked out the window where the spring sun was already beginning to slowly creep through the dense clouds. Her room was filled with bright rays of light, and it gave everything a special atmosphere. Miranda took a piece of paper and carefully spread it out in front of her. On the table, her hand clenched to the pen, as if ready to express everything that tormented her. She began to write, "Dear Lisa, I can't help but speak of what happened between us. It was like storm clouds opening our friendship, and I don't want it to tear us apart. With every word, Miranda put a piece of her soul into the letter. Her feelings were so vivid that she felt as if every letter on the paper was written with her heart. She continued, "We have always been each other's rock, and I can't imagine my life without our friendship. Please, let's talk and work things out. We can overcome any difficulties if we are together." Miranda finished the letter and looked at it hopefully. She was sure that Lisa would understand and respond to this gesture. Hope and faith in the restoration of their friendship filled her heart, and Miranda hoped that soon they would be able to settle all their misunderstandings and enjoy their inexpressible friendship again. Miranda, as she put the letter in her backpack, suddenly felt her heart beat harder. It was a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She wanted Lisa to receive the letter and understand her sincere feelings, but at the same time she was afraid of what might happen next. Thinking back to the past incident with Mason and his friends, Miranda felt a small shiver. She knew that this guy, the school's biggest bully, wouldn't miss a chance to bully. Her backpack seemed to her now like some kind of treasure that she must protect at all costs. Walking through the school hallways, Miranda held her backpack especially tightly. The stares of her classmates, resentment, and ridicule pierced her, but she tried to ignore them. The words from the letter were playing in her head, and that gave her the strength to move forward. When she walked into the classroom, Lisa was already standing there, talking to her classmates. Miranda felt a prick, bitter and sad. They were inseparable friends, and now seeing Lisa socializing with those who bullied Miranda was like a stab in the heart. Miranda sat silently in her seat and lowered her eyes. Her thoughts were centered on the letter and on the hope that she could turn things around. At that moment, she felt someone throwing a paper ball at her. She looked up and saw Mason and his friends giggling, pointing at her. She didn't respond, was too consumed with her thoughts and her desire to regain her friendship with Lisa. Miranda carefully placed the note in Lisa's briefcase, careful not to let anyone notice her actions. She was careful not to give anything away so that no one would guess her intentions. It was like an operation to save their friendship, or she knew she had to proceed with caution. Then the next class started, and Miranda listened attentively to the teacher, trying to suppress her anxiety and impatience. Time stretched slowly, as if studying had become something unimportant to her, because all her attention was focused on the note in Lisa's briefcase. When finally the bell for recess rang, Miranda almost rushed to the briefcase to see if the note was still there. Seeing that Lisa's briefcase was not open, she breathed a sigh of relief. All that was left was to wait until Lisa got home and discovered the note. There was a mixture of hope and anxiety on Miranda's mind, fighting for supremacy. She hoped that Lisa would read the note and that it would help them regain their old friendship. At the same time, she was worried about her friends' possible reactions. What if Lisa rejected the peace offering? Miranda knew that the only thing left to do was wait. There were more classes ahead, and the day promised to be long. But she was willing to wait out any hardship if it would help them regain their friendship. The note was like a beacon in a dark ocean of uncertainty, and she trusted that it would work and bring them to the shore of peaceful harmony. Miranda walked home. Every step was filled with anticipation and impatience. It was as if time was too short to wait for Lisa's answer. The snow beneath her feet crunched, and a chill permeated the air. But Miranda wasn't even aware of her surroundings. Her mind was filled with only one thought, a response to the note she had just handed to her friend. The note was neatly folded inside the envelope, and on it Miranda drew a sun as a symbol of hope. She decided to waste no time and act quickly to possibly repair her friendship with Lisa. At home, Miranda looked forward to the next day. It seemed that every minute stretched like an hour and every hour like a day. Her inner world was completely subordinated to the anticipation, and she could not take her mind off how Lisa would respond. Studies, routine worries, and conversations with her parents passed Miranda by. She was consumed with only one question: how they would communicate with Lisa in the future, how to regain the lost trust and close friendship. Toward the end of the day, Miranda began to worry that Lisa might ignore her note, or worse, reject the reunion proposal. These thoughts filled her heart with anxiety, but she decided to give it a chance, even if it might bring pain. The time tonight stretched slowly and unbelievably long. Miranda went to bed with the hope of a bright tomorrow morning, the hope that Lisa's answer would bring them both joy and restore their connection. She fell asleep imagining scenarios of possible developments. Optimism and fear struggled inside her soul, but hope never left her heart. Miranda walked to school along the usual route, but her mind was completely out of the present moment. She thought deeply about what to write in response to the note she had given Lisa yesterday. The lines of the message in her backpack seemed to loom, warning of an impending decision. It seemed to her that so many things depended on that answer. Their friendship, her future at school, and even her own well-being. Thoughts and answer options literally competed in her head. The first option was so pessimistic that she couldn't even seriously consider it. It was the option of refusing to reconnect, like a wall behind which bitterness and resentment lurked. She imagined writing a short and stern message announcing her decision to keep her distance, but every time she thought of that option, her heart shrank with sadness and sorrow, having almost a photographic memory. Miranda remembered all the moments of their friendship that were filled with joy and laughter. Memories of sharing secrets and experiencing their first girl problems seemed to rush through her mind like lightning in a storm. The second option was more optimistic, but also scary. She could offer Lisa to rebuild their friendship as if nothing had happened. She wanted to believe that Lisa's note would evoke feelings as warm and joyful as those in herself. She dreamed of them being best friends again, as if nothing had ever separated them. However, she realized that going back to the past was impossible, and that even if Lisa agreed to restore their friendship, something would forever change in their relationship. The reality was much more complicated than she had realized. Miranda realized that Lisa's answer could be anything, and despite her hopes, she couldn't predict how things would turn out. She had to fight with herself not to go to extremes. On the one hand, to preserve her honor and dignity. On the other, to get back the friend she had known and loved for so long. Her dreams and fears accompanied her all the way to school. She walked, forgetting about the cold and snow, about the feelings of others, because her mind was fully occupied with waiting for a reply from her friend. It was a day full of expectation and uncertainty, and Miranda couldn't wait to find out what turn their friendship would take. Miranda was anxiously awaiting the moment when her friend Lisa would return to school. She knew that Lisa had to read her note and perhaps send a reply. Every second seemed interminably long, and her heart was beating so fast she thought it would snap. Finally, the long-awaited moment came. The classroom door creaked open, and Lisa appeared in it. Her gaze met Miranda's, and at the same moment Miranda's heart sank. They exchanged smiles, and Lisa moved closer to Miranda. Lisa handed Miranda a small envelope. Inside it was a note on which were her words of response to those expectations. Miranda took the envelope and clutched it to her chest, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. With trepidation and excitement, Miranda opened the envelope and began to read the letters on the paper as if chewing, revealing her expectations and hopes. Her eyes glided over the lines, and she was immersed in the world her friend had created. It read, "Dear Miranda, thank you for your letter. Here is my reply. I don't mind restoring our friendship." Miranda's eyes sparkled with joy. She read on, "I had already had a fight with my classmates, and when I told you that it was time for us to stop communicating, I regretted it." Miranda's heart was racing. She read on, "I wanted to come over and tell you let's be friends again like before, but I couldn't find the words." Miranda was understanding. She read on, "But I'm leaving for another city, day after tomorrow for good. I can't even tell you how sorry I am that this is how it happened. All these years of our friendship have been incredible, and I cherish every moment I've spent by your side. I want you to know that you will always be my best friend, and nothing can erase our memories. May the distance not separate us forever. We will always be able to stay in touch and see each other whenever we get the chance. You will remain for me the same Miranda with whom I had so many unforgettable moments." Miranda finished the last lines, and tears ran down her cheeks. She was overcome with emotion, and she realized how important she was to Lisa. They had really been through a lot together, and now that parting moment was approaching. Miranda finished reading and folded the note carefully, tucking it back into the envelope. She couldn't help but share her feelings with Lisa, even if it was difficult. Miranda got up from her seat and hugged Lisa tightly goodbye, and Lisa hugged her. Papers flew into them, but they didn't care. Spring came slowly, as if awakening from winter hibernation. At the beginning of this magical period, nature was still hiding its treasures under a layer of snow and ice, but day by day the sun grew brighter, and its warm rays began to dissolve the shackles and the icy rain too. The first signs of the coming of spring were manifested in the mysterious gleam of the water in the streams that were being freed from the winter ice. The quiet sound of the flowing water filled the air with freshness and the promise of new life. Only small patches of snow cover remained on the clear slopes, like islands in a sea of spring drops. As soon as the first snowflakes melted, the ground beneath them began to blossom, the first sprouts of spring flowers. The true messengers of warmth broke through. Crocus and tulips and daffodils came out into the light and created bright colors against the still gray nature. It was like a small miracle that reminded that life was returning after a long winter. With the coming of spring, animal life was also deciding. Birds were returning from the south, humming their songs as a sign of welcome. Their voices filled the air with joy and were like personal invitations to the spring ball of nature. One could hear the flitting of sparrows and starlings and the melodious songs of thrushes. Miranda was eagerly awaiting the arrival of her brother. He was very close to her, and she happily recalled their childhood spent together. She dreamed of how they would spend their time when he finally arrived. Together, they could go to the park, walk around the city, make picnics in the open air. And those were the best moments of her life. The spring breeze brought the scent of fresh earth and open loaves. This aroma filled the sense of smell and soul, as if promising new beginnings and possibilities. The days grew longer, and each evening brought beautiful sunsets, coloring the sky with orange and pink hues. A real metamorphosis was taking place in the streets of the city. People were going outside, leaving the warm shelter of their homes and offices. Smiles became brighter, their frowning faces transformed from under the influence of sunlight. Children were playing in the park, running through puddles and shouting merrily. Evening walks became longer and more enjoyable. With the arrival of spring, Miranda felt a new hope and energy awakening in her heart. Her whole life was filled with bright colors and beautiful moments. She saw in this season the promise of new possibilities and hoped for a fresh start in everything she did. Spring was a time of renewal and inspiration, and Miranda looked forward to what this period in her life would bring. Spring came into Miranda's life like a long-awaited angel of salvation after a long winter. This time period of transition from snowfall to green all the trees and bright colors was a source of incredible joy and optimism for her. Every morning, waking up in her cozy bed, Miranda saw the sunlight streaming through her window as if sounding a call to new adventures. The spring morning smelled fresh in the air, and the birdsong provided a stunning backdrop. To start the day, Miranda woke up and felt the breeze wafting into her room with the sense of blooming flowers and earth. Just freed from the snow, she would open the window and sigh that sweet aroma, as if filling her lungs with spring energy and cheerfulness. It was a perfect spring morning outside. The sky was clear and blue, without the heavy clouds that so often covered the sun in winter. The first rays of morning light gently touched the trees, revealing their luscious leaves and creating a play of light and shadow on the ground. It was the nature of the budding of new life. And Miranda, looking at this miracle, could not help but smile. Her days passed under the sign of this joyous change. She walked in the park, enjoying the fragrance of flowers and the concert of birds. Every time she stopped and closed her eyes, it seemed to her that she was part of this marvelous nature that was waking up from its winter sleep. However, this idyllic scenery was disturbed by her encounters with Mason the school bully, who constantly spoiled Miranda's mood instead of the joy and inspiration that spring brought. He brought with him destruction and bitterness. Every meeting they had became a test for Miranda, and she had to find the strength to stand up to this sailor. So one evening, as the day was coming to an end, Mason and his friends decided to attack Miranda again. It was away from her house, where no one could see what was going on. They stole behind her like dark ghosts and suddenly attacked her like crows attacking their prey. Mason stood out among his friends, ferocity and cold-bloodedness. Abruptly, he pushed Miranda into a muddy earthen puddle. Her body, suddenly devoid of support, fell into the cold water and splashing mud of Abdullah. Her bitter smile played on his face as if he had achieved some kind of victory. Miranda lay in the puddle, feeling the mud penetrating her clothes, leaving marks of shame on them. There were tears in her eyes, not from physical pain, but from humiliation and powerlessness. Mason and his friends seemed intent on extinguishing the bright spring joy in her heart. But Miranda was not about to let this darkness crush her. For spring, all its mighty beauty was with her like a protector, a time of improvement and rebirth, overcoming even the darkest moments. Miranda walked slowly down the road home, permeated with fatigue and frustration. The dirt on her clothes and shoes did nothing to improve her mood. Her hair was ear-swept and messy, and her face expressed mixed emotions from hurt and anger to bitterness and determination. Approaching the house, Miranda breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that she could now take refuge in her room and stay safe from Mason and his gang. But at the same time, she realized that this incident would not go unnoticed, and she would have to tell their parents something. The door to the house slowly creaked open as Miranda stepped inside. Her mother, a young woman with kind eyes, stood at the stove preparing dinner. The smell of fresh vegetables and meat filled the entire kitchen. At that moment, the kitchen was filled with warmth and cozy. But Miranda could not enjoy this atmosphere. Miranda's father, a slim and gray-haired man, was sitting at the table in the living room reading a newspaper. He was focused on his thoughts and paid no attention to his daughter's return. Miranda's parents had no idea of the ordeal she had gone through on her way home today. It seemed to them that their daughter had a normal day at school, and they were waiting to hear her talk about her classes. Miranda decided not to bother them with an idiotic story about how she had gotten broody and fallen in a puddle. Instead, she quietly walked past them and headed to her room. Her parents, hearing the sound of her from the opening door, exchanged quiet glances. In her room, Miranda took off her dirty clothes and put them in the washing machine. She wanted to get rid of this humiliation that Mason and his friends had inflicted on her. She then turned on the shower and stood tweaking the water, trying to wash away not only the dirt, but also the anxiety she felt. Soon Miranda stepped out of the shower and dressed in clean clothes. Her thoughts were filled with determination. She realized that this incident was just a temporary hindrance on her path to a bright future. After graduation, she would go far away from here, from Mason and all that negative energy. Sitting by the window in her room, Miranda could feel the spring breeze caressing her face. Times of change were coming, and she was ready to meet them with open arms. Miranda was a strong girl, and nothing could take away her belief in her own path. Thankfully and successfully, the day Miranda's brother James finally arrived was a very special day for her. Ever since the morning, Miranda had been excited. She knew it would be a meeting of joy and warmth. After all, long-awaited reunions with family members always bring joy and comfort. Miranda had even prepared a few gifts for James. She chose them with great care, trying to please her brother and make this day unforgettable. There were small packages on the table, neatly decorated with brightly colored ribbon. Miranda hoped her brother would appreciate her effort and attention. When James finally arrived, he was greeted with joyful hugs and warm words. Mom and Dad, happy to have their son back, invited him into the house. James was smiling and joking. He, too, missed home and family. Saturday was special. It was the kind of day to relax and enjoy time with family. Miranda invited her brother to come into her room. She wanted to share something very important and personal with him. In a room filled with warm sunlight, Miranda felt safe again. She sat James on the bed and started telling him stories about Mason, Lisa's school, and classmates. It took about an hour. Miranda shared all of her experiences, describing every detail of what was happening. James listened with great amazement. His sister seemed so small and fragile, but now he recognized that she was coping with many difficulties, and despite everything, remained strong. In his eyes, Miranda had become even more important and close to him. Anger and resentment for what was happening to her slowly built up inside James. When the story ended, there was silence in the room. James was silent for a long time, digesting all the information he had just heard. Then he stood up, went to his sister and hugged her tightly. "Miranda, I promise that no one can hurt you anymore. We will solve this problem together," he said, quietly and firmly. Miranda smiled, feeling that now she had not only a support, but also a protector. This day was the beginning of a new phase in their relationship, and Miranda felt that she was no longer alone in her struggles. The next morning, Miranda walked to school, accompanied by her brother James. She didn't hear word for word what her brother said along the way. But that wasn't really important. What mattered was that he was there for her, that she no longer had to cope alone. Somehow, things were starting to get better. She couldn't believe her eyes. No one was picking on her anymore. No one was bullying or humiliating her. Suddenly, school was a place where she wasn't so scared and hurt. And the most important thing that happened was that Mason, the main bully of the school, came up to Miranda and apologized. His words sounded sincere, and Miranda felt that he really understood that he had treated her unfairly and cruelly. The next morning, when Miranda arrived at the school, Mason was gone. Miranda was surprised, but had no idea what was behind his disappearance. And brother James seemed to know more. "What happened? Where's Mason?" Miranda asked. James smiled enigmatically. "A military secret. Little sister," he answered, and his eyes sparkled with laughter. Miranda was dumbfounded. What could have happened to make Mason disappear so suddenly? She realized her brother was joking, but the mystery of this situation was quite fascinating. Anyway, Miranda felt that a big change had taken place in her life. She was no longer afraid to go to school because her brother's support was waiting for her there, and even an apology from the bully Mason. New horizons and opportunities spread out before her, and she was ready to explore them. Miranda successfully graduated from high school with honors, proving to everyone and first of all to herself that she is capable of more than just surviving in an environment of rude classmates. Growing up has transformed her, adding beauty and confidence to her face. Her facial features became more expressive. Her eyes shone brighter, and a smile rarely left her lips. After successfully graduating from high school, Miranda enrolled in the best university in the city, realizing her dream of getting a quality education and creating a bright future for herself. The university years were filled with new knowledge and opportunities. Miranda proved herself as a student who could not only study well, but also actively participate in the extracurricular life of the university. Her days were filled with lectures, seminars, research, and socializing with like-minded people. She made loyal friends who supported her in all her endeavors. Miranda was active in student organizations and clubs. She strived to explore all aspects of her personality. Miranda also sometimes found solace and distraction in art. Drawing and music allowed her to express her emotions and thoughts in a creative way. It was her personal way of dealing with the tensions and stresses of university life. One day, when Miranda decided to take a walk through the corridors of the university, she saw a face that was very familiar to her. The first thing she thought was that it could be one of her classmates who might have gone to the same university. The girl was standing there looking at her phone. Apparently, she was busy. Miranda thought it was her old friend Lisa. Doubts crept into her mind. It really could have been Lisa. It had been so long since they had seen each other that Miranda had even forgotten what her friend looked like. She decided not to wait and approached the girl, asking hello. "And we haven't met." The girl looked at Miranda with some bewilderment. She replied, "I don't think so." Miranda then asked her what her name was, and the girl answered, "My name is Lisa." Miranda squinted slightly, trying to recognize her in that face. It was the same Lisa they had studied together for years. She shook her head. "I can't believe my eyes." Miranda's small tears flowed and all the memories flashed before her. The snowman, the struggles with classmates, the notes, the journey together. "And my name is Miranda," answered Miranda, through tears. "Have you changed so much?" Lisa whispered with sadness and joy in her voice.